It's science time, everyone. Are you ready for the science? We have got science news for you. This is This Week in Science, and this is our regular broadcast of the podcast that we publish that people can subscribe to, but you're watching live, which is awesome because the podcast gets edited and it doesn't have all the stuff in it. So you get to see all the things. So thank you for being here for all the science things. We ready to start this?
So
ready? Yeah, everyone's ready. Okay, let us begin. In 3, 2, this is TWIS. This Week in Science, episode number 863, recorded on Wednesday, February 16th, 2022. How to make a time crystal. Hey there, I'm Dr. Kiki, and tonight on the show, we will fill your heads with sex ed, optimism, and fatigue. But first,
Disclaimer. Attention spans are crashing harder than an Olympic figure skater on a bobsled run, or so the popular belief seems to be, and in some ways it is true. Attention spans of most adults are likely much shorter than they used to be, for a very simple reason. We now have smart devices. In ancient times, before texting and smartphones, if people had a question, they had to either talk to somebody who might know the answer to that question or look it up in a book. So, say you have a question that comes up on Sunday. You're talking with a friend and you're trying to figure a thing out, and you can't figure out what the thing is, what the name of the person is, and you want to refer to. Who was that guy who invented that thing with the books? You might have known the name of that guy once, but now it escapes you, and so it is absolutely urgent that you find out who it was as quickly as possible. So let's look it up in a book. Books, by the way, were like websites that had every single page printed out. These pages were kept in a brick-and-mortar repository called a library that you would have to physically visit during certain times of the day. And now it's too late. So let's call a friend. Calling a friend meant that the friend had to be home to hear that you were calling them. The phone was usually attached to the wall of their actual domicile, usually in the kitchen or in the living room or somewhere like that. Some of the high-tech humans back in ancient times had a recording device that would allow you to leave a message if they weren't home. Then they would call you back, often the next day, but then you had to be home likewise or have one of those recording devices, and the whole conversation would go on like this for a week. So Monday, you leave the message. Hey, Blair, it's Justin. Who's the guy who invented the thing with the books? Totally can't remember, and it's super urgent. Thanks, bye. Tuesday, you might get a message back. Hey, Justin, it's Blair. Do you mean libraries? That's Ben Franklin. Hope that helps. Bye. Wednesday, Blair would get the message again from you. Hey, Blair, Justin. No. The guy who invented books. Thanks, bye. And then Saturday, you would run into Kiki at the farmer's market and ask her the same question in person. And she would say, Gutenberg? And we'd go, it was on the tip of my tongue, whatever that means. Then Saturday night, you get a message on the answering machine again from Blair saying, do you mean Gutenberg? But you wouldn't call her back because you already got the answer. And then Sunday rolls around again. You see that buddy who you first had the conversation with, and as soon as you see him, you blurt out, Gutenberg. But now it's lost all context and reference. So a week's worth of attention was required to facilitate that one piece of lost information. Whereas in today's world, you would Google it on your device, say, Gutenberg, that's who I meant, and then just move on to the next thing. So while our attention spans may be shorter, so is the speed of our informational resolutions, which is why we are able to bring you a week's worth of science in just 1 hour here on This Week in Science. Coming up next.
I've got the kind of mind that can't get enough. I want to learn everything. I want to fill it all up with new discoveries that happen every day of the week. There's only one place to go to find the knowledge I seek. I want to know what's happening. What's happening? What's happening this week in science? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening this week in science?
Good science to you, Kiki and Blair.
And a good science to you too, Justin, Blair, and everyone out there. Welcome to another episode of This Week in Science. We are so happy to be here to talk about science. All the fun news that caught our eye from the past week.
Yeah. Hey, Justin, next time you want to do a teleplay as your disclaimer and I have a part, you can totally send me the script and I will participate.
I would.
FYI.
I absolutely would have. The only thing is I wrote it just seconds before airtime.
Oh, okay.
So
hot off the presses.
I feel like this has history. Oh, everyone, thank you for joining us. We do have the science, and we brought all the stuff in the scripts and out of the scripts. I have stories about time crystals in the wild, hardy fish, and old brain clutter. What do you have, Justin?
Let's see. What did I bring today? I have got microbiome and energy levels, how to live longer and eat less, a new life form discovered by a spacecraft, and just good news about HIV.
I hope it's really, really good news. Not just good news. We'll see. Okay, what's in the animal corner?
Oh my goodness. I have stabby birds and what was optimistic animals. So that's good. But I also brought a fun story about sex ed.
Sex ed and optimistic animals. Things that go together. Oh, yes. And optimism and stabby birds obviously go together.
Yeah.
All right. We are all looking forward to these stories and more. There's so much to talk about in the hour.
An hour.
Is it longer now? I don't know how long this
150% of an hour.
Exactly. Yes. But if you are not yet subscribed to This Week in Science, you can find us all places that podcasts are found. Look for This Week in Science. We also stream weekly Wednesday evenings, 8 p.m. Pacific time on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook. You can find us also as TWIS Science on Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram. But all this stuff, if you forget it, just look for us on our website, TWIS.org. All right, let's dive in. Science time. Jumping into the deep end of the pool, except the pool is like hard and it hurts when it's frozen because, water does that sometimes. It turns into a crystal.
Don't dive into a frozen pool.
Don't dive into a frozen pool. Just skate on it like those wonderful Olympians who are doing their beautiful routines this time of year. Okay. That was my weird intro to a story about time crystals.
Okay.
Is that a real thing or is that from like a movie?
Right. It sounds like it's just a concept from science fiction or fantasy.
Look at the device.
Time crystals.
What do we need to do? We got to go get the time crystals from the Crystal Palace to fuel the thing. It's a bunch of tasks. This whole movie is going to be a bunch of tasks.
It's going to be amazing. It'll be a hit. Totally. Yes, but time crystals are actually real. They were first suggested about, almost 100 years ago now, 75 at least. And physicists have been trying to figure out, okay, can we make time crystals? And finally, a few years back, yes, indeed, researchers were able to create time crystals, but in a very specific kind of superconductor quantum situation that it's only in the laboratory can be created and not very useful for real world applications.
What is it?
Yes, so like crystals are a particular regular patterned structure of atomic matter that it's like a lattice where the lattice has a predictable symmetry to it. Okay. And that is something that occurs in space. Now, a time crystal has the same kind of lattice-like symmetry within it that can be broken, only it is in time.
Still, I'm not getting a good idea what this is.
I know. Yeah, it breaks the brain a little bit. So The researchers who just published a study about this have been working on creating time crystals that could be taken out of isolated situations, isolated conditions, and actually work in the real world. So, in their work that they published in Nature Communications, they have created a very small system in which they have just a little square millimeter of space that's filled with gas, and this gas is magnesium fluoride, and there's a glass resonator within it, and it gets hit by 2 laser beams, and the 2 laser beams are tuned with temporal symmetry, tuned to each other, and so the frequency tones that these lasers are tuned to, they have occasional connection. And so it's this resonance that happens that blips up at random. It's not really random. It's a crystalline pattern in time, which is so interesting. But anyway, they use a resonator to achieve this connection that these lasers are able to create. And really, I mean, what we need to know is that a time crystal is something that is physical, yet at the same time is a useful concept. And it can be used now that we've got this ability to create it in the wild, out in the world, not in like sub-zero temperatures, not under specific pressures. This is just like out in the open. It can be created. Now it can be used for very specific uses like timekeeping, very accurate timekeeping because of the resonance that occurs within the glass, within the laser, and the resonance between the two of them. The system as a whole is what's considered the crystal, and that can be put into quantum computers. It can be used in fusion to be able to accurately create the timing that's necessary to allow fusion to occur on a particular pace to maintain sustainable fusion. It can be used for even just instead of atomic clocks, we could use a time crystal potentially. So maybe one day our cell phones will have time crystals in them instead of just GPS units to connect us to satellites to figure out what time it is.
I have a time crystal watch. You mean a Timex? Yeah.
No, time crystal.
It's basically the same technology.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
I don't get it. I'm with Blair. I'm not getting it.
Yeah, so it's a weird the weird concept is they're taking photons of light, so it's a photonic system, yet at the same time it's the concept of time. And so when you're thinking of something happening over time, it's an oscillating system that changes over time. And the fact that there is more than one atom present in the system allows for a bit of chaos in the way that the system interacts with itself. And so because of that chaos, it is able to create this crystal. And it's mind-bending, it's a difficult concept to get.
And I'm not getting it because I'm still getting a cartoon, because then I'm like,
yeah,
well,
I still think of it as resonating. If
I run, I
resonance.
run over time. Am I a time runner? Well, technically, on some level, yes. But not in the way that would be interesting. So that doesn't mean the story's not interesting. It just means that I just don't get it.
Yeah.
I need. This is when an infographic. Can we
would be very useful.
Can we have a graphics department?
Can we get the time crystal infographic, please?
Can we at least get somebody to write some analogies that will help me?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the IEEE, an author at IEEE who wrote an article about time crystals back in December, Charles Choi, who we know also from Live Science and other places, he's a great science writer. He says that a time crystal is a new kind of matter that bears an uncanny resemblance to a perpetual motion machine. Its parts can theoretically move in a repeating cycle without consuming energy for eternity, like a watch that runs forever without any batteries.
What's your watch?
Timex.
You were close.
I was very on point there.
I'm just grabbing at nouns now.
Well, because this is the thing. Like in anything, like in any system, all we have is a box of words, and we compare it with another box of words. And if you pick up some of those words, you get more words. So if it's a new thing, you don't have concepts behind. All you have is the words, and those words are related to other things. But if it's really a new thing that you haven't really conceptualized yet, it's just a bunch of words. That's always how it is.
Hello, I will be defending my thesis today. I have before you a bunch of words. Here we go. Well, Kiki, I will say, sounds like something fun is coming with time crystals, and I'm excited to talk about it again later, and maybe I'll understand more of it next time.
That's exactly it. So hopefully we'll get people to talk about time crystals with us here on the show sometime this year, so that we can learn more about them from people who work on the subject, who maybe have the words.
We can make a 3-dimensional graphic that explains it, and in the graphic it explain, but this is a 3-dimensional representation. Actually, this would be taking place in time.
You froze at a very opportune moment. Please don't edit that, is all I have to say.
It was perfect. Oh my goodness.
I love it.
Yes.
Okay, great. Time crystals. Got it. 100%.
Time crystals. They are not just science fiction or fantasy. They're not physical crystals, but they are new phases of matter.
They don't go in a warp core.
They do not go in a warp
core,
but they could help to make fusion possible.
So they could go in a warp core.
Or a lightsaber.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe I'm overestimating.
Kyber crystals?
Yeah, new technology, interesting technology. It's the exciting point about it is that the concept can now potentially be taken out of specialized laboratories with very specialized equipment and now potentially make it into other real world applications.
I'll have one.
And that's exciting. Well, maybe not right away, but soon. All right, Justin, tell me, you have some good news?
Oh, yeah, just good news. The news segment that really tries its hardest to bring you just good news about a subject that is usually wrought with heart-wrenching, depressing reality, the kind that makes you want to stay in bed for days hiding under your covers in total darkness, wishing over and over again that the bad world would just go away. HIV edition.
Oh, no.
Just good news. A woman undergoing treatment for both HIV and leukemia has been cured by researchers at New York Presbyterian Weill Cornell Medical Center, or so it seems. 14 months after discontinuing antivirals, she is still testing negative for the HIV virus. Only 2 other people have ever been cured of HIV infection. Both were also suffering from leukemia. Those patients had a bone marrow transplant from another person who carried this rare genetic mutation that is known to block HIV infections. In this new case, the woman received cord blood from a person with the same genetic mutation as the donor, the bone marrow donor from the previous 2 cured patients. She was also given blood stem cells from her first-degree relative. The stem cells were given to bolster the woman's immune system, while the donated cord blood cells could become dominant in her system. The woman continued to take antiviral drugs to keep the HIV at bay for 37 months after the procedure until 14 months ago, and she is now HIV-free. Why did it work? Well, they don't know. The researchers think the cord blood cells might have the ability to adapt to the new environment and may contain stem cells that aid in the process. The patient was female and of mixed race, which is important because most past studies involving efforts to treat or cure HIV have involved white males. Researchers say that cord blood is much easier to obtain than stem cells used in bone marrow transplants, and the procedure was much gentler to the patient than a typical bone marrow transplant would be. Both of the patients that were cured of the HIV in the past, those were men. Both also suffered pretty severe side effects. I think mostly because bone marrow transplants are pretty invasive, extremely invasive.
It wasn't it wasn't just that the bone marrow transplants were invasive. They had immune reactions. So they had because the host versus graft disease.
Correct. But the just mild symptoms and side effects in this woman. So she's well recovered, really, from the procedure. So that's it. Just good news. Somebody's been cured of HIV and leukemia on the side. Not bad.
Amazing on both fronts.
Hey! Oh God! Wait, I just got the just good news, and it was just good news.
For real?
Yeah.
I know. I was waiting for the other shoe to drop.
There's no dropping. It's just
another
shoe.
This is how he lures us in.
Oh no,
to a
later.
sense of complacency, and then he'll maybe do a few very nice, just good news stories, and then
wait. Let me finish that story.
No.
So that was.
Nope. You're good here.
No, that was the end. That was the end of the story. That was the end.
Good.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, we hope this is she hasn't shown any signs of HIV for several months since the end of the treatment. So fingers crossed that it just stays that way, right? Let's hope it stays that way, but it looks good. Blair, is it time for some sex ed?
Yes. This is not only a portion of the show about sex ed, but also a really segment. New York University, a peer-reviewed publication, says federally funded sex education are linked to a decline in teen birth rates. Really? So there's been lots of studies before, but they were all correlative. So this was an attempt to create a more causative relationship between sex ed programs and birth rates. And so this was looking at a 20-year period. It was a long-term assessment of the impact of comprehensive sex education in reducing teen birth rates by county. So they were able to see that this comprehensive information on sex, contraceptive, and reproductive health had a greater impact than abstinence-only programs. Really? But also, this was specifically capturing people's age, their county of residence, and whether or not there were government-funded sex education programs provided to teens in their county. And so they found after the first year of this funding, teen pregnancy rates dropped 1.5%. By the fifth year, it dropped 7%, and it appeared to keep going. So this is something where, over time, it gets better and better. Who knows why? Maybe it's just because they get better at teaching it and better at distributing the information. It could be that the community accepts it better over time because it's expected. There could be any number of reasons why that is, but ultimately, sex education prevents teen pregnancy.
Well,
yes, go ahead.
Well, yeah, so there was the reverse of this, of course, the reverse study, the inverse study that took place. Yes. The state of Tennessee. At one point abolished sex education, and then in the years to follow became the state with the highest rate of teen pregnancy. Which really?
Yeah. So the second story about sex ed that I brought that I think it kind of further illustrates this point is about a meta-analysis of peer-reviewed publications looking at the STI and HIV risk reduction via sex education that focuses on sexual pleasure and desire. So this is, for any of us that grew up in an area where we went to public school and we had sex ed, that's not really part of the conversation. It's
not
the
at
nuts
all.
And bolts. Sometimes,
Yeah, nope.
I still went to school when they separated the boys and the girls, which is insane for so many reasons. But anyway, so not a lot of them talk about sexual desire or sexual pleasure. But this shows that can improve knowledge and attitudes around sex, shocking, as well as improved condom use compared to those that do not. That totally makes sense to me. If you're talking about the motivation behind sex, that it's a lot easier to talk about ways to prevent infection and also pregnancy in the context of when you actually might be in the heat of the moment and wanting to have sex. It makes way more sense to me. But so this is a meta-analysis of research literature from 2005 to 2020. They found that incorporating pleasure into programs can have positive effects on attitudes and safer sex behavior, and the recommendation is therefore to revisit sexual education and health intervention approaches that do not acknowledge that sexual experiences can be pleasurable. Yeah. This is also like just thinking about, if you think about the whole idea of consent, and you think about being sexually healthy and not being emotionally damaged from early sexual experiences and all these sorts of things, I could totally see this helping with that on the whole. Because also, if you acknowledge sexual pleasure, I'm thinking back to the dolphins from a couple weeks ago. If you acknowledge sexual pleasure on both sides, that can change the whole dynamic of how young adults approach sex for the first time.
Well, if you're not approaching it from a position of guilt, shame, fear, it changes everything. It changes the entire way that it is approached.
That sounds like it would ruin everything. Yeah, so I don't know if it was like, I think it was like some sort of a pilot program that they were trying out. But I recall in my junior high school that we had, I for some weird reason remember it being connected to home ec, or maybe it was just the same teacher as the home ec. It's kind of foggy, but I do recall it was boys and girls in the room sitting around a table, and it was ask any question.
Sounds like someone that didn't have a lesson plan.
Right.
Yeah, no. Well, no, but it was designed to be like a
Reddit AMA before
open question about why I've heard about this. Why do people talk about this thing? Blah 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 blah. Honestly, the only question I remember specifically was somebody asked if people ever dye their pubic hair. And the teacher's like, yeah, actually, that's something people do. Yeah. That is something people do. And then everyone, and I was like, would they do it blue? And that's all I remember. I don't even remember she answered me. That was like the whole. Okay. That's the only thing I remember. But it was delving into the things like what is pleasurable versus what's painful stuff. What's the things you've heard about that are probably not true? What are the things that people are actually most likely to? That sort of thing. It was a little bit more than that separating thing that I always see in the movies where they're like, this is the tube where the baby comes out, or the super basic thing that people get.
I watch the show Big Mouth, and I know recently it's gotten much more into comedy and just absurdity, but I feel like the first couple seasons was better sex ed than I ever received, in my entire education. And I found myself like standing up, like screaming at the screen, like so excited and there was part of me that was like, when I have kids, do I need to show them this show? Like it just... Yes. It talks about things in a way that is not taboo, and also talks about pleasure and talks about all these the motivations behind sex, which I think also, you could push back to our puritanical upbringing on the Mayflower and all these sorts of things. There's a deep-seated kink shame in the American culture, and that is a thing. But getting away from all that,
Yeah, we just watched Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Part 2, and there's a scene where they're talking about the making of babies, and Drax, who's not that he doesn't joke, he's not into sexy time, and he's like, my father would tell us about how we were made once in the midwinter every year, and he was like, oh, Earthlings have hang-ups. yeah, Drax, you got it.
Exactly. Yeah, so anyway, science tells us We
Yeah.
should be teaching our children about sex, and we shouldn't ignore the fact that people have sex for pleasure when we do that. So,
Exactly.
post
Yeah.
Valentine's Day,
Mhm.
there's a little nugget for everybody, from me to you.
Thank you for bringing the love of
Yeah.
love.
Mhm.
That's what it is. All right, we have, let's see, more stories. Moving on from sex ed, let's move to fashion. Move to the left, fashion. Move to the right. So, have you ever kind of wondered, like, oh, I'm going to be going to New York. I wonder what the big fashion trends are, like in different areas of the town. Like, maybe I need to pack certain clothes to fit in, or I'm going to move to a new city. And how do I know if I'm going to fit in? And what's the fashion there? And how does that all work? Or maybe you're just curious about how trends have changed, even within subcultures or neighborhoods within areas over years. Brooklyn has not always looked the same. That is true. People have changed their clothing trends. Well, to answer this question, researchers at the Cornell Ann S. Bowers College of Computing and Information Science have been working on an artificial intelligence underground map of fashion. And for this artificial intelligence underground map of fashion, they have an algorithm that can recognize similar clothing styles and map them from social media to particular locations within cities. What they're interested in it for is the potential that, it can be a useful tool for visitors to an area, for new residents. But realistically, it can also be really an amazing tool for anthropologists, for people who study humanity and the trends in humanity and the things that we're into over time. And if this kind of a tool, this kind of an AI algorithm can just start collecting information and save it for a few hundred years, anthropologists in the future are going to have, and digital archaeologists, they're going to have such an amazing treasure trove of information.
Oh boy. My fashion choices are being judged everywhere I go, everywhere there's a camera.
Right. So when you're at an event or you're going to a certain place, or, you live, in a certain area. And so the algorithm can kind of figure out this is where you are most of the time. And it kind of will map you into the general trend. But instead of just looking at just a whole city, what they're looking at, they're making it neighborhood accurate. So they have two human-centered benchmark programs, Hood Maps and OpenStreetMap, and they're polling residents of cities in the study to be able to determine how accurate things are. The group's underground mapping, it better captured the sense of a neighborhood than existing methods. And so they're able to give people insider knowledge of a city, and they're calling it the underground mapping tool.
Interesting.
Yeah, for cultural underground. So it's neighborhoods they're interested about, not actually like the parts of a city that work together to make up the whole. Yeah.
So I can see how the fashion industry would want to use that. Definitely, I can see that would be sort of or
Trend hunting, right?
back
Like it's like,
when
oh,
yes,
that's happening. I didn't know about
they
that.
used to
Oh,
interview people, but yeah, now they
yeah.
can just do that.
Yes.
And it would have helped this department store that I worked for a bazillion years ago that was based in Chicago and did its buying and then sent out clothes to all of the stores throughout the United States. And the thing that has always blew me away is we'd have this rack of prairie dresses out here in California. And I would just look at this
that
thing
was
and
a
be
thing
like,
for a while. Oh, geez.
nobody in California is going to wear a prairie dress.
Oh, they're back. They were in Target last summer.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, no, now it's the micro mini and the corset. It's all 90s now, everybody. That's at least that's what Twitter tells me. So
Yeah, and the bell bottoms and the
yeah, I really wonder why Twitter wants me to know that it's micro mini season in I just don't understand that. Okay.
One fun fact about Denmark while we're on the fashion tip.
Yes.
Nobody in this country will leave the house in sweatpants. It's not a thing here at all. It would be just like, oh, what
Are
is
you
wrong?
sick?
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
what's wrong with that person?
It used to be a thing here, but
Yeah,
then
certainly.
not a thing. All right, let's talk about new things.
Oh goodness.
You have new
Okay.
things?
This is a big one.
Trends?
A novel life form was
That's a big
found
one.
by a spacecraft.
What? Where?
Life
In outer space?
On
life
Mars?
on another planet. That's what we're looking for, but it's not the most important criteria. In fact, finding life on Mars could be considered a disaster if the life we find is a little too related to life on Earth. If, say, we find signs of life on Mars, return that sample from Mars, from the Martian surface, back to Earth, and discover that the signal is actually coming from an organism. Then we attempt to sequence the life form just in case, and sure enough, it has DNA, just like on Earth. And oh gosh, by golly gee, what were the chances? Excitement would be high as the analysis of the organism's DNA is run through the public genomic database to discover it has a striking similarity to a specific strain of fungi found here on Earth, one that's actually named after a researcher who studied fungi for 18 years, whose university participated in building the very craft that discovered the sample on Mars. So,
Oh, really?
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh,
shoot.
really?
Yeah. So good
Yeah.
at killing everything on those spaceships, but
So
Sounds
yeah,
like
but thankfully,
so
That's
good,
amazing.
but never good enough.
thankfully that didn't happen because it was discovered by the spacecraft adjacent to it in the assembly facility.
Oh, not in space.
Nope,
Oh.
but it was a novel. It was a novel
A little
strain
contamination.
found in a clean room. They named it after a longtime Berkeley Lab microbiologist, Tamas Torok. Torok, Berkeley Lab affiliate scientist in the Climate and Ecosystem Science Division, decades of experience studying microbes in extreme environments, with a specialty of focus on studying those microbes that would show up in the clean rooms where they were assembling spacecraft. So this new fungal strain shows the ability to produce a biofilm, which means it can attach to surfaces and survive cleaning protocols in the assembly facility where it was discovered. The strain's ability to survive in this low nutrient environment is of concern because these clean room facilities comply with NASA's robotic missions requirements, and this is something that's escaping the protocols. It's getting around, it's getting by it. So kind of fun. A scientist who's worked for decades on this, who's not, I think he's retired, got this named after him, which is a great honor to have a fungi.
Huge offer.
named
He's a
after.
fun guy for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it also it presents once again that issue of, if we go there and if we discover life, how do we know we didn't bring it? And Blair, your point, yeah, what if it escapes and manages to subsist upon Mars and propagate, and then that's the life on Mars? And then in the back of my mind, it's like, why not? What if the things go hell in a handbasket here on Earth, and we never do colonize? There is no Marsifest destiny. We don't get humans there, and the space program ends, and we all devolve, and just nothing ever had. That was the height of humanity. Hey, at least life has another shot if we leave some trace of it behind on another planet. So there's part of that in the back of my head. It's like, if you found something that can survive a hostile environment, let it go.
life finds a way.
But not
for
yet,
sure.
not yet, because we still need to do the initial investigation to determine that there is no life before we start polluting it with life.
But you don't want to land on Mars and have a nice squishy landing because it's just covered in a thick layer of mold.
I love this picture that you've got up there, by the way. Where this is collecting from it looks like some what do you call it? Thermal venting.
It's Thomas Turok, who is the researcher who had the fungi named after him, collecting field samples in the Uzan caldera, a volcanic environment located on the Kamchatka Peninsula in the Russian Far East, to find extremophiles. And so that is the big question, is whether, okay, so something like this that is existing in a clean room, it is an extremophile. So if it can if it can exist through the harsh environment of space, through launch, through entry, through the atmosphere of another planet, to get to the surface of another planet, if it's extreme enough, what is that going to happen? Is that possibly going to be, is there going to be the contamination? And if there is, we already have contaminated Mars.
Quite
Just
possibly.
bring some tardigrades and be done with it.
We started throwing spacecraft at other rocks in this solar system before we were really thinking about this cross-pollination idea.
Really good point. Really good point.
And I think there's some admission that that's going to happen.
Yes.
I think the fear is that it interrupts the mission of sussing out life. I mean, the scenario I presented, where you go up, you get the signal because they're not in that, being able to do the full spectrum of analysis, perhaps, but they get a signal that something organic is there, and then they take all the trouble to bring it home again, and it turns out it's the thing we brought there in the first place. It's an enormous waste of time, effort, and money. So we don't want anything. We don't want any noise in the system while we're out there doing our search.
While we're trying to figure out a new planet, we don't want noise in the system. Do no harm in that sense. But then if we want to colonize it, do all the harm we want. It's then the pendulum shifts.
Well, then it's not. If we can rule out life. I mean, it's almost in a sense, to the progression of things, it might even be easier if we don't find life. Then we can just go there and colonize, not give it a second thought. That might actually be the easier way. If we do find life, then we have to really hand wrangle and struggle for a little bit about how long do we spend studying the novel native organisms.
It depends on how much trouble we're in here on our planet.
That's always a fact.
So many interesting questions. That is really cool. And meanwhile, on our own planet, we are just makety-uppeting all sorts of little organisms. So researchers at Harvard have their School of Engineering are making fish, little teeny tiny fish based on zebrafish, but they're making them out of human heart cells, human cardiac muscle cells. Yes, they have created these little biohybrid. I shouldn't say biodynamic because that's like a word that's used in farming, which we're not talking about. Biohybrid fish. They're a little bit machine, a little bit human cardiac muscle cells. And the muscle cells, they have a pacemaker that they put in that gets it all going. And then the muscle cells act on the fact that one side is stimulated to contract. And while that side is contracting, the other side is stretched, which makes it contract, which stretches the other side, which causes an oscillation back and forth. And why on earth would we be using cardiac myocytes to create little fish? Like, why would
that's
we
what I was
doing
gonna ask.
that? So what researchers are trying? What do you have there, Justin?
I actually have one.
You have a that looks like a can opener, a wine opener,
maybe.
a wine bottle opener. So, what researchers are attempting to do in this effort to make these little heartfish is actually learn how to build artificial hearts. And so they've been building different structures for many years out of heart cells from different species. And they've finally gotten to the point where they're like, all right, we're using human cells to do this so we really understand how the cardiac myocytes work together. And so by creating a system, the researcher said, he's like, look, you can create a lump of cells in a dish and call it you can call it a, what are they calling those things? Those balls of cells that are organoid. You can call it a cardiac organoid, but it's still not a cardiac system. It's really not the kind of system that's doing what a heart does. It doesn't have the same kind of thing moving. It isn't working in the same way. And so they're learning how the contraction and activation of these cardiac myocytes works to see how they could potentially integrate it into an artificial heart system. One that would potentially last the lifetime of an artificial heart recipient. And that is the situation here. So these biohybrid cardiac fish, once they get going, they take a little while to get going and they last for about 100 days, and they actually get stronger from the minute they get activated to the first couple of weeks. They get stronger and stronger and stronger and then they just keep going. They keep fishing. Fish. They keep swimming around. Their movement is based on the movement of zebrafish, and hopefully one day this will allow researchers to understand how to build a heart.
That is the most ridiculously brilliant.
Right?
It's so both cool. You're like, that's just so ridiculous that you made a little fish swim thing, but then you can just like basically put them in the tank and see how long they swim, and you can determine how robust your how robust
the system is, and it's the muscle working together. And the researchers were saying that now they can investigate mechanoelectrical signaling as a therapeutic target of heart rhythm management and for understanding pathophysiology and sinoatrial node dysfunctions and cardiac arrhythmias. These little fish can potentially help solve a whole bunch of human cardiac problems.
What a fantastic
so cool. So the 100 days, is that because the pacemaker runs out after 100 days?
Right. Or maybe that's just how long the experiment went before they published it, and they'll keep going. Yeah.
Here's where I'm getting confused. They don't have a digestive system. It didn't have a battery.
Right.
I'm assuming
they're in a bath.
Liquids that
Yeah, it's going to be in a bath of fluid.
Rich, fluidy thing.
Right. But so the
not unlike what your head will one day float in.
Yeah. Hopefully for more than 100 days.
Exactly.
But so that's what I'm thinking is that something that lasts for 100 days in a nice nutrient-rich bath would do much better in a closed system with,
getting fed.
A metabolism.
Yeah.
Right. Because it all depends on what broke down after that 100 days. If the muscle fibers are breaking down, if it pooped out.
Well, it's right.
Or to Kiki's point, even if anything at all, like it might just been, we're going to run this for 100 days.
Yeah.
And boom.
Yeah, and it could be, the system doesn't have all the stuff that would necessarily be there to fix problems. And we do know that cardiac myocytes, once they get broken, they can't fix themselves. They're not good at doing that. That's why we have a whole bunch of heart problems. So yeah, but what they're learning right now is very, very valuable.
Yeah.
Cool.
From these little teeny tiny fish. Oh, and Blair, this is a very interesting point. The biohybrid fish reached speeds and swimming efficacy that was similar to zebrafish in the wild.
Somebody at this facility, this team, somebody is too smart to just do one project. Like,
yes, I was thinking the same thing.
So I was just like, yeah, I'm going to engineer this I'm gonna make fish out of it. I'm gonna time them, and I'm gonna make them a good model of a fish, just on the side, on the side, because I can't just do the one thing.
You could just have muscle fiber that twitched.
That's it.
It'd be like, I did it. It's a heart.
You can call it time crystal.
Ooh,
Look, you can keep time. No, you went way further.
Yeah.
But time trials.
Fish. What if this heart muscle was a fish?
Cardiac fish races. Just insanely awesome. I think this is my favorite story of the year.
This is someone who was rejected from ichthyology and was pushed into cardiology and was like, you know what, though? The fish are where my heart is.
This is one of those that I know we cured HIV at the beginning of the program, but this is one that I think we need to keep for the end of the year. Is like one of my top stories for the
all right.
End of the year.
We
HIV thing's very impressive.
We'll put it on the list.
And then was the driving fish, was that this year or last year?
That was this year also.
The fish are killing it.
Fish. Oh, is 2022 the year of the fish?
It's the year of the fish.
I thought it was the year of the tiger. Come on.
Well, tiger gotta eat too.
This is This Week in Science. This is the day, the week, the episode of This Week in Science that you've chosen to listen to. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you are interested in joining us in the future, just know that we're here every single week. Please share us with a friend. All right, let's come back. I really did not want to bring any COVID news tonight. Justin, can you tell us what's going on in Denmark?
So Denmark opened up completely. No masks. Yeah, they still have testing, but if you test positive, you can basically still go out in public. They're even getting rid of quarantining and everything. It's all out the window. It's endemic. We're going to roll with it. They started this a little while back, and cases and deaths have surged.
Mm-hmm. Surprise.
Okay. Yeah, surprise. Now, people are looking at doing this in the United States. I want to point out something that is important. Denmark has, of the people who are considered vulnerable, most vulnerable, the elderly, the immunocompromised, they have 95% have been vaccinated. 90% of those have been vaccinated to the point of the booster. Okay. This is a country with universal health care. Where everyone goes to the doctor without thinking twice about it if they need to, because they're not going to get hit with a life-hemorrhaging bill that ruins their credit and their ability to progress within a capitalistic society. Those are big differences. The United States had recently the weekly total of 2,000 deaths a day, which, let me see what that is. If I put it in the thing, it is okay. 365 times 2,000 is the current rate. That's before everything everywhere is opened up, by the way. Yeah. That is 730,000 dead people in 1 year. And that's with the current level of masking. You get rid of that and you get a surge and oh my, I don't have a scientific on my don't do it.
I read an article this week about endemic delusion.
Yes. Yeah.
So there's this idea, it's been sold to kind of people through, I don't know, the media or something, I don't know. But this idea, it's like, if we all just give up, like it'll be fine. Like it's you know, if you were gonna get it, you got it. It's done.
And in that article that you read, there's it's actually it's a Scripps researcher who is actually from Denmark, who's like, I do not agree at all with what's going on in the homeland. And you know, the people who are coming out in favor of it tend to be politicians, as is the same case in the United States. You're not getting a lot of people who study this sort of thing coming out and saying this is a great idea. You're getting people You're getting people who want the political will to have the political
But I think
interest.
we
to
also,
wanna
I think
open.
we have a combination of factors, though. We have a lot of people who have never wanted to get vaccinated or wear masks, who've been fighting it tooth and claw the entire time. We now have people who have been vaccinated, that their kids have been vaccinated, and they want no more masks and they want things to go back to normal because they've done all the things. So it's now we have a much larger group of people who are actually spread across lots of different belief systems, right? Different identities and ideologies who are now coming together. The group's getting bigger and clamoring for this all to be over.
I mean, there's certainly a large group of people who have been perfect this whole pandemic and are sick of being good while everyone else isn't, and has just gotten fed up with it and just said, "Screw it, I'm going out."
Exactly. And as Daniel Smith is saying in the chat, the real problem that isn't being considered is more people catching it means more chances for it to mutate. And so this is why we keep asking people to get vaccinated, because if people are vaccinated, then that's less of a place for it to enter and possibly mutate. We know that there are breakthrough cases. And the problem with this coronavirus is that we've talked about before is that it's very likely already in so many animal populations that it's going to disappear maybe into animal populations once we have a whole bunch of people, large majority of the human population, actually vaccinated and exposed. So natural immunity and vaccine triggered immunity. That's gonna make everything go away. We'll have a nice lull for a while, right? And then it'll hide in the animals, mutate in the animals, and then come on back. And then
I
we'll
think it's
have a
going to be a
new
deer.
resurgence.
I think it's going
It'll
to be
be
a
a little
deer.
while. We'll have some time there, but there will be another variant. It's happened before. It will happen again.
I think it's going to be Bambi. We shot Bambi's mother, and Bambi's going to come back some years later, sneeze on a hunter, and wipe out the entire Midwest.
But it is absolutely. I mean, it. Normal is never going to be normal again. Things are going to be different for a while, and then it'll be a new time, and it'll be a new what we used to consider normal.
Don't say it.
You almost did it.
Sorry.
Don't say it.
But see, that's the problem. That's so sad.
It's what the status quo was bad before. It's what led to the pandemic. We don't want it. We don't want to go there again. We don't want that. But we also need to accept the various viewpoints, and we need to I don't know that there's an easy way out of this. The science we're learning more all the time, but this is a mutating virus and it's changing as it goes. And how do we keep a population of humans with wants and desires and fatigue and languishing to go along with something they get tired of, right?
This is the thing that I think is really hard for a lot of people to swallow, and I have struggled with as well, is if your workplace wants you to go to work, why can't I go to the movies? Why is it okay to risk my health to go to work, but I am not allowed to risk my health for my mental health and my own enjoyment? And I think that is the problem that people across the political, scientific, all the spectrums are now dealing with, is that society is trying to pick and choose when to be careful. And
people are real arbitrary, our priorities are messed up.
So but the thing is, they wanted everybody to go to work from the beginning because the people who own the companies wanted to continue to make the money while they were vaccinated, not leaving their McMansions or whatever.
That's the problem. If you're somebody who has to go fry
and they ruined
burgers,
the planet.
Who am I to tell you that you can't go see your friends?
Mm-hmm.
That's there. It is a huge disconnect in priorities and expectations, and so it feels arbitrary to just the average person. And if it feels arbitrary, then why follow rules?
Yep.
It was that whole, joke that was going around when the
social
CDC
psychology
changed.
is very clear on that. Yeah.
Yeah, when they changed their isolation guidelines because it felt arbitrary.
Yeah.
People were tweeting, "Oh, the CDC now says you can use the 10-second rule instead of the 5-second rule," right? Ha 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 ha. It was actually based on real science, based on the Omicron variant and its incubation timeline. But that was not communicated properly. And so it felt arbitrary, and so no one wanted to follow.
And it was actually wrong. So
Sure. But the reasoning behind it was scientific, right?
yeah,
That
it was.
There was a reason. Whether or not it should have come out the way it did when it did, or if we should have stayed with the more conservative 2 weeks because it would have saved lives in the long run, no matter what. Yes, of course they should have. But it was based on something that wasn't communicated properly. And so it felt like nothing.
Yeah.
So here's the thing that I can't help pointing out. And there was a point before Omicron, perhaps before even Delta, when the experts, the people who study viral disease spread and pandemic-y stuff, pathogens and the like, were saying, hey, what you have to worry about even more than the immediate threat is the ability for the thing to mutate into something else.
Yeah.
Now, had we taken off the 6 weeks and just shut down society and just nobody left the house,
You're banging your drum.
Done.
Yep.
I know. Got to get that out every time. Still, we could do it now. They were right. And so there's a lot of people like, oh, we have no idea that Omicron was going to happen next.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yes, we
did. And we told you about it. And you were warned about it over and over again. And they said, this is why it's so important. Aside from how you're handling the thing currently, is that there can be, guess what? Omicron isn't the end of the story now.
No, there's even, a second Omicron variant, and there will be more. But, we hope that we will be able to be protected with vaccines, that we will have treatments, that we will be able to manage as we move forward.
Man, everyone's so burnt out. I feel like a
everyone
6-week
is very,
break
and I think
would be welcome.
It would be fantastic.
It would be welcome.
Pandemic vacation. We're just all going to stay home from our jobs and our workplace. Like, hey,
I'm going to Disneyland. No,
it's all closed. You can't even go to the grocery store. Here's your delivered groceries for your 6 weeks. That is what you get.
All world governments agree to print their money as they usually do. Therefore, it's just consistent. Money's made up anyway. If you need more, if you don't believe it before, look at all the bit thingies. The crypto, that's all making up money, and it's worth more than real money now. So just everybody print money as usual, send it to everybody, and just take 6 weeks off, and we can have a free planet again.
Yeah.
But nobody listens to me. You know why?
No.
Because I'm very quiet and soft.
I know, you need to be more assertive.
I need to really get my point.
Eric Wood, it is, I think, the unicorn variant that's going to destroy the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And on that note, everyone, we will end our COVID segment. This is This Week in Science, and we hope that you are safe and healthy and happy. And we thank you for joining us for another episode of our Science News Podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please head over to TWIS.org and click on our Patreon link, where you can choose your level of support to help support this show in an ongoing fashion. We do give you this show. We bring it to you, produce it every week for your enjoyment. We bring you the news. And if you support us at $10 or more per month, that's less than a cup of coffee a week, probably. $10 a month, and we will thank you by name at the end of the show. Because really, we can't do this without you. Thank you so much for your support. All right, let's come on back now. You hear? For a little section of the show with a few, I don't know, it's noisy. There's a bunch of animals in it. There's also knives this week. I don't know. It's Blair's Animal Corner.
With Blair.
Hold on a second. Somehow it's quiet.
She loves our creatures, great and small. Biped, millipede, no pet at all. You want to hear about animals? She's your girl. Except for giant pandas and squirrels.
What you got, Blair?
I have peacocks.
Oh dear, they're loud.
Yes. Yes. They are famous not just for being loud, but also for killing and eating snakes.
Ooh,
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Peacocks.
They're famous for killing snakes. And so
I had no idea.
yes. And so
yes.
the Muzaffar Ali Khan devoted his PhD to investigating exactly how peacocks can kill venomous snakes. In Pakistan, where he grew up, he actually had many neighbors who kept peacocks, and so they kept them. One of the reasons was to kill snakes. And so, under the supervision of Michael Richardson at the Institute of Biology, Leiden, they analyzed the molecular resistance against cobra venom in various birds and mammals and found differences. What kind of differences, you ask? I'm so glad that you asked. They looked at several mammals that eat snakes first. They looked at mongooses, the European hedgehog, the honey badger, and determined that only mammals that shared territory with snakes had evolved some sort of resistance. Makes sense. The resistance made the snake venom less potent in their system by making the toxins unable to bind to the target in their body. But what's specifically interesting about this is, they're resistant to venom. That makes sense. They eat venomous things. But what was interesting was that they found in the DNA that they were not the same in all the animals. The DNA markers that caused this adaptation were not consistent, which means that the different animals evolved the resistance each time independently. There was not a common ancestor that already had resistance. Which brings us to birds. Peacocks, hawks, eagles. One of my favorites, the secretary bird. They are all known for killing snakes. But when they looked at the DNA, none of them were even slightly resistant to venom. There were no genetic markers towards venom resistance.
Not at all.
No.
So if they get bitten by a snake, lights out.
Do you want to know their theory of how they survived these venomous snakes?
Feathers are actually fang proof?
No, it's their
No, okay.
stabbiness. It's the stabbiness. So birds, all of these birds, yes, of the birds, they're all very, very good at attacking snakes. They are fast. They have excellent vision. They have heavily protected scaly legs. They're very smart. They're very quick. They're very agile. And so it seems like there's no selective pressure for venom resistance. They're just too darn good at killing snakes.
They don't need resistance because resistance is futile.
Yes, there you go. I guess resistance is redundant in this case. But they also use feathers to distract the snakes. They know exactly where to peck at them, away from the fangs, back of the neck. So all these things mean that this is all still a theory, but this is the theory of why they are able to kill and eat venomous snakes. So a couple things about this. So first of all, that means there is not some common vertebrate ancestor with venom resistance, which would have been wild to figure out. I would have guessed it would be a long shot, but
I'm still not convinced that that's not the case. But
it would have to be venom resistance, like back in the dinosaurs.
Yeah, no, I mean that's kind of almost what I mean, though. Yeah. Like, I mean, it's odd that they had come up with resistance in different ways, which tells me it's not. It looks like a convergent thing, but I think you also have to have maybe building blocks for, even if they come across differently, I don't know. That flexibility, that plasticity to come up with venom resistance that's different in different ways still kind of tells me that maybe there is an architecture for it somewhere in the way back, even if it's not just resurfacing or consistently there. But yeah.
So you have to keep in mind too, though, peacocks are from India, secretary birds are from Africa, eagles and hawks, Europe, the Americas. So they
Right.
all kind of live in different places. So if they are, you also have to think about the timeline of the specific venom that they're
Because
going
not all
after
venom is
too,
the
right?
same.
Not all venom is the same. In fact, in a study many years ago, I reported on if you can identify even like down to a few square miles of where a venomous snake is found, that can help you develop a better anti-venom. So in Israel, where there were many venomous snakes, a bunch of types of rattlesnakes and vipers and stuff, they would say if you get bit by a snake, try really hard to recover that snake and specifically take note of exactly where you were bit geographically, because that will impact the anti-venom that you use. So if venom is so specific to a species, to a location, I don't think it's that surprising that the method of resistance would be different.
Okay.
Right.
But then the whatever architecture was there that then applies that resistance is sort of where I'm getting at. It sounds like that's a thing in common. But then it's also
but in
that's
this
the thing is
study,
it's not necessarily in common. It's going to have to do with a very specific location with okay, you're an animal in a particular space and there's a particular venomous creature that you have to be resistant to.
Correct.
Versus like you're a bird who flies all over the place and you like to eat snakes.
Right.
Yeah, but
Because
that's my
they're a
point, is
protein
that
source.
it is emerging differently because the venoms are differently. Like but you'd have to
Justin,
take
so
an
the
eagle
the
and
main
put it in
piece,
India. Right?
the main piece of this study, though, was looking at DNA. And the
Yeah,
fact that the location in the DNA, the specific DNA responsible for resistance, was not at all similar between the Asian mongoose, the European hedgehog, and the African honey badger, means that they do not have the same evolutionary origin.
Disparate convergent affect. Yeah. Okay.
So
it's
at
convergent in the fact that it's resistance to venomous to venom, but it is completely independent in the fact that it is totally different DNA mechanism.
That's what makes it convergent. Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
But it's also a really good example of how sometimes a behavioral tactic can be effective enough that there's no need for a genetic physiological change, which I think is also the other piece of this, that these birds figured out, and this could be convergent or it could have a common ancestor. There could be an entire bird ancestor that has passed through genes that show it how to kill snakes with impunity, but ultimately the behavior was successful enough that there was no selective pressure to create venom resistance, which is very cool.
That's how the opposite's going to happen in humans. Of course, we're going to have all these negative pressures, because at some point, at age 40, many humans would just stop being able to hunt or find things, because we'd just go blind. We just wouldn't be able to see anything. We need glasses now. Everybody has glasses
now. I've needed glasses since I was 8.
Oh yeah. But I mean, see, you would have never made it.
Never.
You never made it this far just because of glasses. Let alone
glasses, color vision. I'm a mess.
Let alone if you need it,
all the things.
We're gonna have some fun outcomes if this experiment goes pretty well.
That sounds optimistic, Justin.
Yeah, look on the bright side, will you? A study from, speaking of Israel, from Ben Gurion University in the Negev, Israel, and that is in cooperation with the Department of Wildland Resources, wanted to look at optimistic or pessimistic thinking in wild animals and how that impacts their behavior. and also how it impacts their success, actually. And so they developed a computer model for animal foraging that considered valence-dependent optimism bias, which is a lopsided learning process in which information about bad outcomes is discounted or ignored. They showed
that's
that when
what gambling's all about.
Yeah. It's gamblers, the ultimate optimists, according to this study. So when faced with decisions, foraging animals that gave mental weight to positive outcomes had an on-the-ground caloric advantage. More optimistic animals did a better job. They survived better. They got more food. They did better, generally speaking, in the game of survival. In this simulation, the fictional animal forager was equipped with partial knowledge of average food quality and travel time to new food sources. They made ongoing decisions about whether to stay where they were or to return to previously explored areas or to go to new ones. So yes, this is gambling for sure. Every time the forager moved to a new patch, it learned about that area, it added that information to their mental library, and then they moved on. So optimistic decision making led to healthier circumstances and better access to food overall. Even when it didn't reap food rewards in the short term, rapid learning was beneficial because if you continued to look further, you'd find more good stuff. And so animal mortality is driven by starvation, generally speaking, rather than predation. So access to food is ultimately, specifically for the animals that they study, these kind of grazing animals, foraging animals, that was the ultimate decider in success or failure, is were you able to get access to food? And so animals that used extremely optimistic strategies did better. Ones that used extremely pessimistic strategies tended to die of starvation at a younger age than the other individuals in the sample or in the computer program. Yeah, look at that happy deer. I know it's not actually happy, but it looks like a cartoon. It looks so happy. What
kind of grass are you eating?
Very happy grass. So
go ahead.
Yeah. So what is it really that, I mean, how can I have optimistic foraging strategies and not starve?
You know what this reminded me of? The sunk
What do I do?
cost fallacy.
Yes.
And it's kind of the opposite of that. So if you are stuck in a situation where you're not getting what you need, it is beneficial to be optimistic and take the plunge. It's it's like in job hunting. You on average, if you get a new job, even if it's a quote unquote lateral move, you make, I think it's 15% more every time that you leave your job. So it's a very well kept secret out there, but it's true. So that means that taking the plunge, being optimistic, jumping to something new is beneficial to us as well. So that's actually a really good example of this theory in practice. But it takes optimistic thinking to think, okay, I'm going to fit in my new workplace. I'm going to like my new job. My boss isn't going to be terrible. Like all of these things, you really have to be optimistic to want to take the
try something new.
Yeah, because there also is a chance you're going to go and it's going to suck. And if that new job is bad, then you have to try again. That's ultimately what this strategy means, right? Is keep trying the new things until you find good stuff. As you could apply this to dating as well. If you're in the dating pool, right?
It's good to know though that like this comes from very solid ecological behavioral principles where this is animals making these choices survive versus animals that don't. They're gonna die. They're gonna die of starvation.
So what this model is telling us is you want to balance your known territory, whatever metaphor you want to apply that to. Balance your known territory with the time and energy devoted to exploring new resources. So you want to devote time to the things that you know are beneficial, but make sure you set aside time to try new things because you will find something beneficial to you if you keep looking. So it's what the researchers say, because it's so funny, is optimism is a mental glitch that offers an evolutionary advantage when dealing with limited information, spurring exploration and allowing for adaptations to changing environments.
Next time I see somebody who's being unreasonably optimistic, I'm going to tell them to put their mental glitch away.
No, I won't. This mental glitch is going to make me live forever. So anyway, it's very interesting to consider when you apply it to humans. That's not what the study was about. But it also is really important to know when studying ecology and working in animal conservation. If you know the strategies that will be most effective, then you can help kind of predict where the winners of a population will go and how they will act. And so if you know that exploration is beneficial and you build a new shopping mall next to a wildlife refuge and there's more car strikes in the parking lot of that new shopping mall. I'm just making this up. But ultimately, if you do that, then you know that you are actually probably weeding out the most optimistic individuals in a population, and that could have a negative impact on overall population health.
Oh, that's a gosh, that's a
huge
great
implication.
insight.
Yeah.
So so there's a lot that you can kind of apply with this information based on a computer model. But optimism.
Interesting.
It could be a good thing.
Very big insights for optimism. All right, Justin, I'm optimistic that you can tell us something energetic. Keep us from being fatigued, maybe?
Oh, yeah, that's a good intro to the next story that I've got. Clarkson University researchers found a correlative link between a small sample size of humans' energy levels and their gut microbiome. Associate Professor of Physical Therapy, Ali Bouliani and his team searched the microbiome for associations between microflora and self-reported personality traits or mood ratings of mental energy, mental fatigue, physical energy, and physical fatigue. They had they had 20 participants assessed by survey. The gut microbiome and metabolome, which is the actual enzymes and what have you, molecules that are being produced by the gut microbiome, they were determined. There was RNA analysis as well as untargeted metabolomic analysis. Found some interesting things in here. Bacteroidetes, 45%, the most prominent phyla, was only negatively correlated with physical fatigue. So I guess that means if it wasn't there, you would see physical fatigue more highly rated. Second most predominant was butyrate producing phyla Firmicutes, and it has the traits. That one is kind of interesting. So bacteria Anaerostipes, I'm very slow at pronunciating these names, but it was positively correlated with mental energy and negatively with mental fatigue and physical fatigue, respectively. So that's kind of an interesting one. Now you got this one that is there when people have mental energy and is sort of disappearing when they have mental fatigue, report physical fatigue. Diet sort of influences this too, because they're also tracking these people's diet. One food group in particular, processed meat, was correlated with all four of the moods, positively with mental fatigue and physical fatigue, negatively with mental energy and physical energy. And that's the one that had the Firmicutes genus Hodamania. That was correlated with the processed meats. It was the only one that had just very specifically correlated. So it's sort of interesting because I've been mocking nutritionists, not mocking them
Have you?
wholeheartedly, Like,
We know the microbiome is influenced by diet and fiber, and there's all sorts of
Of
interactions
course,
there.
but I've been mocking the nutritionists because they've written all these books. You can put a whole bookcase together of books written on nutrition before they knew anything about the microbiome and how it interacts.
Right. Yeah.
And so then you're like, okay, throw all that knowledge away and start over. But you can actually build off, because now you're seeing
This is why.
foods correlated to microflora in some cases. Now, the rest of them, they weren't, but this is one specific one that they found was correlated in the sample. But it's really interesting because this is starting to get into that field of what is a healthy, productive, or hacked microbiome. Now, you might hack it so you've got mental energy and you don't have any physical fatigue, and you're going, and then it turns out that leads to some awful disease down the road that we don't even know about. But so it's a small sample size. They only had 20 individuals in this, but they are now seeking funding to do much larger, more robust study, because the initial correlations, and this is a follow-up to other studies that this group has done, so that it looks like they're kind of on the right track there.
I'm really curious about. I would love to see a large study of this sort take place, because we know that there are hormonal influences. I personally just went and had a conversation with a doctor today about, and was told that dietary fiber can influence estrogen levels, and that if you increase your dietary fiber intake, you actually reduce estrogen reabsorption in the colon. So it can actually reduce estrogen dominance in women who have an estrogen dominance problem. So there are dietary things that nobody talks about unless they know these things. And what is the mechanism? That I know there are some enzymes involved, liver enzymes related to the fiber and all. But if fiber is the factor, there's probably a microbial interaction there as well. And so what is that, and how does that all work? So we have these loose pieces. We know iron deficiency affects energy and brain fog in women. We know, and everybody, progesterone can influence, testosterone can, all these things, but they can also be influenced by diet. And so what is the middle piece? How do the microbes play into it? And I think that's a really interesting question.
And this is why this study, I think, was also very interesting. And again, like you're saying, the bigger study, when they get more data, is actually going to be probably more revealing and more interesting even. Is that you're starting here with the correlative. And this is when correlative science is not bad.
No, it gives you a place to start.
Definitives. It's giving you a starting point.
It's a place.
But if you do, then, okay, so then you've narrowed it down to like, say it tracks, and processed meat stays tracked to this one microbe, the gut microbe that tends to flourish. Now you can study that one gut microbe and see, okay, what are in its interactions? What molecules is it producing? How do those molecules, once produced, interact with the larger system? And now you're starting to get mechanism, the causal things, and then you can actually, like, if you need a drug treatment or a drug blocker or just a dietary recommendation that's actually backed up all the way through so it leads to all these things. That you're right. This is but the other thing you could do is just stop eating.
No, you can't.
Just stop eating. Turns out, people who eat 14% more have reduced healthy lifespans.
Oh, caloric restriction. Okay.
Yeah, they did a caloric restriction study. They found it improves metabolic and immune responses that help determine both how long a person lives and how many years of good health they will enjoy while they're having this longer life. 2 years of modest calorie restriction reprogrammed the pathways in fat cells that help regulate the way mitochondria generate energy. How insane is that? That is hacking.
Yeah.
2 years of, in this case, humans. This is not a mice study. This is not a mouse study. This is a humans study. I'll repeat that. It reprogrammed the pathways in fat cells that help regulate the way mitochondria generates energy, the body's anti-inflammatory responses, and potentially the longevity of the person. This is according to Eric Ravusin, PhD Associate Director for Clinical Science at Pennington Biomedical Research Center. In other words, quotey voice here, in other words, calorie restriction rewires many of the metabolic and immune responses that boost lifespan and health span. They went further. This isn't completely correlative because they did a little bit of identifying here. As I go down here, they found, where is it? A activating factor acetyl hydrolase was reducing. It produces health benefits that included the lower age-related inflammation and improved metabolic health. So even found a specific thing that was taking place in the thymus. I didn't even know what a thymus is, but apparently we have one.
It makes T cells. Yes.
Oh yeah, that's where the T cells come from, is the thymus.
Yeah.
So it says here, this is quoting again Ravusin. As people age, their thymuses shrink and produce fewer T cells. As a result, older people have a harder time fighting off infections and certain cancers. Calorie restriction helps prevent the thymus from shrinking, so the person generates more T cells. So they really found quite a bit of, it's important because if a person doesn't, in addition to improving the immunity and increasing T cells is associated with ability to burn stores of fatty acids for energy. And then you don't, if a person doesn't build that fuel, then you get the thing where it's building up in organs and the muscles, the livers, and the heart, and leading to insulin resistance, obesity, diabetes, all the rest of it. So it's really kind of a critical system to keep going as long as possible in its most proficient way. So there's that.
I'd like to age healthily. I'd like to, live long and prosper, right? Not have my immune system give up on me before I'm ready. What's the other thing?
This is one of those things, though, that, like Justin mentioned before, there might be something down the road you don't know, right? So there's other things with calorie restriction that you also need to look for as well.
Nope, you don't. So they did do another study. There's a second. No, you're right. There's a second study where they in mice where they reduced the calories by 40%. So they didn't do that to the humans. They got it down to 40%. And there were negative effects in growth and reproductive viability. That happened. They still got health benefits for being otherwise healthy, longevity wise, but they had, because they had gone down so far, they had, you're right, absolutely other ramifications took place. This reminds me of the time when I had I was doing my own study with a domestic cat that I had almost gotten the cat. I cut the food in half every day. And I'd almost trained this cat to live without needing food, and then it died of natural causes, which was
Justin.
The experiment was almost I'd almost gotten to the trained not to need. Okay, that part I made up the cat. Don't send the emails. It was a
terrible made up story.
But the mouse 40% reduction. Saw the health benefit side of it that they were seeing in the humans with just 14%, but had other consequences because of the drastic, I would say, reduction in calorie intake.
Yeah, wasn't there's also one compound, this PLA2G7, that they have identified as a potential target for people who don't necessarily want to do the caloric restriction.
Yeah, so
might be a target for making the immune system stronger.
Yeah, if you just can add it to the or reducing it, I guess if you could find a way to knock it out, which would, knocking out an enzyme is actually a somewhat easy thing. You just build a thing that it could lock into but doesn't have any other function, and you should be able to sort of sponge up enzymes to some extent. I don't know.
Sponge the enzymes up. Yes, that sounds like amazing therapy
Yeah.
and science. We have created the enzyme sponge. It will sponge the enzymes, and you will live forever. This is This Week in Science. I'm Dr. Kiki, and I have a couple of stories left. I hope that you're interested in hearing about cluttered old brains. Cluttered old brains. A research study it's a review study in Trends in Cognitive Sciences has been looking into the idea that as you get older, you have a lot more stuff in your brain than people who are younger because you've been around for a lot longer, and so you've just got a lot more stuff rattling up in your brain. And there's this difference between wisdom and knowledge, and how can this information be used and how can the information benefit. So we also find that as we get older, memories kind of go into decline. We have a harder time accessing words, memories. Oh, remember that one time, or the name of that band, or I forgot. And you have these moments, senior moments that people talk about. Well, it could be that the brain and the memory process of older people is cluttered, but I prefer that, and this was suggested in the study, that we should call it enriched or elaborated or even overloaded.
Is that like 10 to 20 years of science news from
Exactly. I don't even
Yeah.
remember which story was told which week. Exactly.
Mhm.
But what has been discovered is that as people are remembering things, I'm trying to make things embiggened so that I can put them up on the screen. As people are remembering things, younger people are much more focused in the way that they target information, and they're able to forget things that are irrelevant. They can leave things out of that memory. They don't make connections to it, and their memory stays focused on the target. And older people are better at doing this earlier in the day, but as you get older and as days go on, other memories and other networks and other things that connect conceptually from other memories, different things, they start connecting to the thing that you might be trying to remember. So the memories become, as they say, cluttered. And so what this is actually this mental process as we age. It's as people age, the brains lose the ability to focus attention on specific things. But I appreciate this study because even though older adults show reduced suppression and or deletion of information that's not relevant to a present task, they're able to make connections. This study mentions the fact that older people are able to make connections that younger people can't. And this comes back to the idea of wisdom versus just knowledge, that because of these networks, because of these supposedly irrelevant connections can be made by people who have had more memories, more thoughts, more knowledge put into their brain because there's more in there to pull from. So there are two different, there are benefits to having a cluttered brain. Things might get lost in the shuffle. Your filing system might be a little bit difficult to get through and find things in, but the stuff is still in there, so you can get it.
So if I have a disorganized mind as a young person, is that going to make
Is it even worse as you get older? I have no idea.
Or is it just going to seem normal?
It's just, right?
Like, that's kind of like my impression is like, oh gosh, yeah, having all that clutter and all those weird connotations and things not being very organized. Wait, that's how your brain's always been, Justin. Oh, that means we'll be just fine. Or it'll get worse. Ooh. Don't know.
Oh no. Yeah, so anyway, these researchers say that they argue that older and younger adult memories contain similar target features. We're remembering the same stuff, but older adults' memories contain more non-target features and so are enhanced or cluttered with excessive information.
Oh man. I
Oh.
wonder if any of it is also because you kind of have your running task list in your brain all the time that's taking up processing power, and the older you get, the more responsibilities that you have and the more things you're constantly thinking about and the less you can focus on the memories that you have in your brain.
So I think this is something that I don't know that anybody has really taken into account in these kinds of studies. I mean, these kinds of studies, they give you it's in a lab situation. They say, remember this word. Don't remember this word. They give you lists of things or numbers, or you read a story and you're supposed to pull certain things out of the story. But I don't know that it does it's always just separated by age and not necessarily by how many responsibilities
Yeah.
you have that are potentially competing for your attention in this particular moment. Yeah.
Right. What's your current stress and anxiety level? Great.
Yeah, I think that's a good question to bring in.
I think my mind only saves annotations of the text of reality, the life I've lived. Got these sort of side notes in there, and that's it. Well, what was the actual thing?
Just Post-it stuck to the wall.
It kind of is. A little bit like a couple lines highlighted, something underlined. The rest of it can go.
I'm pretty sure that my brain is basically like any desk or filing cabinet that I've ever had. It's just the stuff is all still there. I haven't thrown anything out. But there's paper shoved in every crack and crevice, and it's all over the place. So
Mine is covered in doodles. So
doodle brain.
yeah.
I love it. I love it. My last story has to do with multiple sclerosis. A study at the University of Zurich and Munich's LMU Klinikum Hospital have looked at monozygotic twins to identify the influence of environment and genetics in cases of multiple sclerosis. And in doing that, they've been able to tease apart factors that nobody has really teased apart before. So in having these monozygotic twins, which are identical twins.
That's the real twins, not the fake.
The real twins,
Yeah.
identical
Not
twins.
just roommates. Yeah.
Yeah, not just the roommates.
These identical twins in the situation, one twin in the pair had come down with multiple sclerosis and the other had not. And so they looked to see what kind of factors conveyed the difference between the twins in order to figure out, what's going on genetically and what's going on environmentally. Because what we know is that if one of the twins got multiple sclerosis, then the genetic basis is there in both of them. So what was it that allowed for the triggering of the genes that lead to the autoimmune disorder that the one twin suffers from? So what they were able to pull out from this is they were looking at the immune profiles, and they were able to identify proteins in the immune cells of the sick twin in each case and decode the totality of all the genes that are switched on in the cells, according to one of the researchers. And it was also added that as they obtain as much information as currently technically possible from these valuable samples, and they had all algorithms and artificial intelligence to get insights from it. So what they determined is that there were hyperactive cytokine receptors. So the the immune cells were hyperactive to certain cytokines, and that led to increased activation of T cells in the blood of the patients with multiple sclerosis. And these T cells we just talked about, they come from the thymus, but they are more likely to migrate into the central nervous system and cause damage there than other cells. Additionally, these T cells were they were naive. They were like they had been just recently activated, so they were like some kind of almost a stem cell T cell, but not quite. So they were like these baby T cells. They hadn't quite developed into fully functional T cells. So there's something odd about that particular aspect of the cytokine initiation of this particular group of T cells that go on to affect the immune system and evade the normal checks and balances. And what the researchers say is that in finding this particular group of these naive, not fully functional T cells, they say that they think they might have discovered the cellular big bang of MS here, precursor cells that give rise to disease-causing T cells, which can be very exciting. And so they will be doing further study of these twins, looking to determine more factors related to what's happening in the immune systems and the differences between the twins to figure out exactly what happens.
Yeah, it's the thing worth remembering always when we're talking about it. And a perfect example here too is that the genome is basically the building materials. It's the Home Depot full of stuff that the body can use. And then things in the environment can determine sometimes what actually gets pulled off of the shelf. And it's not a blueprint in and of itself so much as just all the stuff you're gonna get to work with. And then depends on which shelf things get pulled down from in some occasions, or get activated or get turned on, turned off, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So, as you know, previous studies recently have suggested that viruses like Epstein-Barr are highly implicated in triggering multiple sclerosis. We've even seen that SARS-CoV-2 is triggering currently some cases of multiple sclerosis. The method, like the mechanism by which that happens, why certain people genetically are predisposed, and what leads to that happening. How does it now we have this new piece. Okay, there's this cytokine hyperactivity, it's something, the virus comes in and somehow it's triggering a particular thing that's making these naive T cells that cause the problem. So what is the pathway there? How is that happening? And once we start really figuring that out, we might be able to stop it.
Mm-hmm. Get those things out of there.
They cut it out, T cells.
Yeah.
Stop it. Yeah. So exciting news.
Yeah.
It's very exciting. I it's always exciting to find new answers, but we know that the complexity of the world, there are still so many questions.
I love a twin study because it removes so many confounding variables.
Yeah.
Just so many.
Yeah. Oh, you're exactly the same genetically, but you decided to do different. Oh, great. Okay.
And in many cases, you were raised in the same house, so you have the same external factors growing up, and it's great. It's a scientist's dream.
How come we? Oh, I guess we do. I was gonna say, how come we
we
don't hear about how come there are a bunch of twin mouse studies? And I realized like, it's because all of the mouse studies are twin studies.
Yeah, they come in litters. But it's even like I think about the astronauts. One went to the space station and one didn't, and you got to see all the differences. It's awesome. It's a perfect control for so many uncontrollable factors in studying humans.
Yeah.
More twins.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know.
There are a lot of us here. I don't know.
Oh no, I'm so no. That's a terrible thing to wish upon people.
It'd be tough.
That's a tough one. Oh my goodness, I can't even imagine. One is enough. The sunk diaper fallacy thing,
Oh, the diapers never end. But this show is coming to an end. Thank you for joining us for another episode of This Week in Science. We're so glad that you came with us on this scientific adventure of this week. And I would really love to thank a few people. Thank you. Shout outs to Fada. Thank you so much for your help on show notes and social media. Thank you to Identity 4 for recording this week. I hope you've been having good travels. Gord and Arnlor et al., everyone who's helping to make sure that the chat rooms are nice places to be. Thank you for helping in the chat rooms. And just all of you chatters, thanks for chatting. It's really great to see you here while we're live. And Rachel, thank you for your help editing and for all of your assistance. And finally, thank you to our Patreon sponsors. Thank you to Richard Badge, Kent Northcote, Rick Loveman, Pierre Velazarb, Ralphie Figueroa, John Watnaswamy, Carl Kornfeld, Karen Tazi Woodayamas, Andre Bissett, Chris Wozniak, Dave Bunn, Vigard Shefstad, Hal Snyder, Jonathan Stiles, aka Don Stylo, John Lee, Ali Coffin, Maddie Perrin, Gaurav Sharma, Ragan, Don Mundis, Stephen Albaran, Daryl Myshak, Stu Pollock, Andrew Swanson, Fredus 104, Sky Luke, Paul Ronovich, Kevin Reardon, Noodles, Brian Carrington, Matt Bass, John and Nina Lamb, John McKee, Greg Riley, Mark Hessenflow, Gene Tellier, Steve Leisman, a.k.a. Z. McKen, Hayes, Howard Tan, Christopher Rabin, Dana Pearson, Richard, Brendan Minish, Johnny Gridley, Rami Day, Flying Out, Christopher Dreyer, Artyom, Greg Briggs, John Atwood, Bob Coburn, Rudy Garcia, Dave Wilkinson, Rodney Lewis, Paul, Philip Shane, Kurt Larson, Craig Landon, Mountain Sloth, Jim DePoe, Sarah Chavez, Sue Doster, Jason Olds, Dave Neighbor, Eric Knapp, E.O., Kevin Parachan, Aaron Luthen, Steve DeBell, Bob Calder, Marjorie, Paul Disney, David Summerly, Patrick Pecoraro, Tony Steele, Ulysses Adkins, and Jason Roberts. Thank you, each and every one of you, for all of your support from Patreon. And if you would like to help us out on Patreon, please head over to TWIS.org and click on that Patreon link. On next week's show,
we will be back 8 p.m. Pacific time on Wednesday, 5 a.m. Central European time on a Thursday.
Early.
Very early. Broadcasting live from our YouTube and our Facebook channels and from twist.org/live.
Hey, do you want to listen to us as a podcast? Maybe as you pipette some goo into a dish. Just search for This Week in Science where podcasts are found. If you enjoyed the show, you can get your friends to subscribe as well.
For more information on anything you've heard here today, show notes and links to stories will be available on our website, www.twist.org.
Yes, you can also contact us directly. Email Kirsten at KirstenThisWeekInScience.com, Justin at TwistMinion@gmail.com, or me, Blair, at BlairBaz@twist.org. Just be sure to put TWIS, TWIS, in the subject line, or your email will be spam filtered into our very cluttered, or rather enriched, spam box. Yeah. We'll never see it.
No, we'll never see it. Yeah, if you want, you can contact us directly on the Twitter, where we are at Twist Science, at Dr. Kiki, at Jackson Fly, and at Blair's Menagerie. We love your feedback. If there's a topic you would like us to cover or address, a suggestion for an interview, a haiku that comes to in the night, please let us know.
We'll be back here again next week, and we hope you'll join us for more great science news.
And if you've learned anything from the show, remember,
it's all in your head.
This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science is the end of the world, so I'm setting up shop, got my banner unfurled. It says the scientist is in, I'm gonna sell my advice, show them how to stop the robots with a simple device. I'll reverse global warming with a wave of my hand, and all it'll cost you is a couple of grand. 'Cause this week's science is coming your way, so everybody listen to what I say. I use the scientific method for all that it's worth, and I'll broadcast my opinion all over the earth.
'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 I've got one disclaimer, and it shouldn't be news, that what I say may not represent your views, but I've done the calculations.
We did it. We're at the end of this show. I'm yawning. You know.
Why? It's not like we had a 2-hour show. Oh, wait.
Oh, we did.
I don't know if you're going to edit out that whole COVID section, but if you do,
might.
I think you should release it on the Patreon.
Okay. That's a good idea. Yeah, I was actually thinking of cutting the COVID section out.
Yeah, and that makes sense because there were no studies in it, but
Yeah.
but it was a very interesting conversation, and I think that releasing that on the Patreon would be cool because then a good number of people would still hear it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I will do that.
Yeah.
The Patreons will get it. Yes. It's Justin off checking on a baby.
Probably.
Good. Sorry, I started yawning.
That's okay.
Something
it just means
attacked
that I
me
care
with the
about you.
yawning. Yes. I apologize for the yawns. Identity Force travels went well. Very good. Very good.
Oh, good.
Very good.
So I checked my Twitter, as I often do at the end of the show, to see if anyone engaged with me on the Twitterverse. And Not a Wolf, which is a very good Twitter that I follow, said, so you can say, oh, I'm so burned out, or, oh, I have brain fog, but not, I can feel the ever-slowing pulse of our world as it lay dying. It may never again feel the warmth of the sun. Gonna try. Maybe it's my mattress next time and see how that goes. Yep. Agreed.
Good night, Fada. Sorry I made you yawn, Paul. I did it to you too again.
You said the word yawn.
Everybody's yawning now. Go. Oh, yawn. That is an acronym standing for you are wanting nap.
Yes.
It makes a lot of sense. Good night, Fada. Have a good night. Yes. Ooh, interesting question. I can't get past my yawning. What is the most 80s sounding song?
Probably like, what is it? Safety Dance, I think.
Oh, that's a good one.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
I probably think that because of the Futurama episode with an 80s guy and he sings it multiple times.
I love that your whole like view of the 80s is from Futurama.
Well, I was just like, what is the most synthesizery song I can think of? Oh, I guess that one. But also, like, I don't know.
No, the 80s was great. That's when with a Casio keyboard, some hair gel, and a little bit of writing, a 40-year-old man could get on stage and speak lyrics. Wouldn't even have to sing them.
Yeah.
Just speak them out, and you were a rock star. Those days, they need to come back. I'm ready. I've got the hair going.
9 Inch Nails was 80s.
They went to the 90s instead.
Oh, yeah,
Aha, Take on Me. That is a good one.
Oh, I love that song. When I first learned how to drive, I had a mix CD that I made.
When you first learned to drive, you had a CD.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Which, like, to you guys makes me feel makes me sound young, but to other people I talk to makes me sound very old.
Technology can date you quick.
Yeah, but
It
so I
can
had
really
a
date you
CD,
quick.
and the first song was "Take on Me," and I would have blast it and roll down all the windows to my parents' Buick Century
Nice.
with the bench
Hey.
seats where mom and dad may be watching. Yes, I did fit 10 high school people into that car.
Wow.
And we were singing "Take on Me" and driving through the sunset. And it was
So that song though is funny because
Gosh, blinded with science. Yep.
my now 14 I think he was like 13 years old at the time though, was like singing it out. And I'm like, how did you hear that on the radio? It's just like, what's radio? Never mind. It's
radio.
But it is kind of cool how digital format it makes all era music accessible at once. You don't have to tune into a station that's going to just play the thing. You can go and search and get the, we can't play it though. You can't play it on because it was the thing.
Oh.
Yeah. Could hear you.
Shooting at the walls of heartache. Bang, bang. I am a warrior. That's a good one. That's a good one. What was the one I was thinking? Oh, that was my first.
Yeah, Shoemaker. I was more into the punk things too. I think if there was anything blaring out of my first automobiles tape deck,
yeah,
it would have been probably Misfits, Dead Kennedys.
This one had both. It had the tape deck and the CD player.
Wow.
And it was aftermarket.
Okay, I was gonna ask, was that CD?
It was aftermarket. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
The car was like a 1991. I want to say.
Ooh, madness. A house in the middle of the street. A house. That one? Blair doesn't know that song, does she?
I know that song.
Oh,
no,
okay.
I was looking up when Rock Lobster came out because I could have sworn that was an 80s song, but it's 78.
Oingo Boingo was great. Yes.
I actually didn't listen to Oingo Boingo at all. However, I went to Irvine. I went to an Oingo Boingo concert, and it was the first time I'd ever heard them. That was really good. It was a fun time.
Super fun time. Girls just want to have fun. Cyndi Lauper.
Of course.
Of course. There's so many good ones. I wonder, but it's hard to say. The 80s had a whole bunch of different styles to them.
It certainly did.
It wasn't just one thing.
It was like the
no
origin of punk, right? It was in like late 70s, early 80s.
Yes. Yeah. You had glam bands, and you had, the hair bands, and you had girl rock stars, and
David Bowie.
Yes.
Also started in the 70s, but
but still, lots of 80s.
Oh no,
Lots of 80s stuff. In the
he
60s, late 60s.
If you hear the the first,
he was
David
late
Bowie,
60s. Yeah,
it is. I think he's doing like crooner stuff a little bit, pop croonery. It's not anything. It has nothing.
Are you talking about like early 70s Tom Waits too, where he's just singing, and you're like, who's this? Yeah, I walked down the aisle to a Tom Waits song, and you'd never know it was a Tom Waits song.
I would.
You would.
I would.
You would, and you did. The first David Bowie album was 1967.
Yes.
So close. Yeah. Close to the 70s. What about Tommy Boy? Tom Waits was probably late 70s, right? 80. 80 was his first? No, that's not right.
Stevie Wonder.
Heart Attack and Vine was not his first.
Well, but Tom Waits is also one of those guys who's like, you look at it, you go, oh yeah, Tom Waits, he must have been rocking it out there with the Beat Generation back in the 40s.
Mm.
That's when he was, right?
No.
It's hard to
No,
place 'cause
Closing
he's-
Time was 1973. I knew it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
Closing Time.
Yeah. Yep.
Great one.
I just love it all. I just love it
Love
all.
Closing Time. Too.
He's due for another one.
Yes.
His last one was in 2011.
He's been doing a lot of soundtracks and like
Mhm.
musical scores.
Oh
So-
yeah, Orphans isn't on this list either,
Yeah.
which was later.
Yeah.
Got an old list.
Wait, was Big in Japan was that the
Oh, that's Mule Variations. That's like
Yeah.
2002 or something. I could look it up.
Oh, I'm too old to remember what year things came out. Too much.
Oh yeah, Orphans was in 2006. No way.
Oh, take my breath away. Yes.
Anyway.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, what about Total Eclipse of the Heart? When was that?
Oh yeah. Definitely.
'83.
Total eclipse of the heart.
Have you ever looked up what
Turn around, bright eyes.
what the number one song was on your birth?
But was more
on the day of your
70s.
birth? Have you ever looked it up?
No.
Oh, that's one of those questions that those data scratchers try and use to suck your personal information into their systems. It is.
Well.
Turn around.
Oh yeah, I've
and
looked this up
now and
before.
then I get a little bit closer. Yes, I know if Rick Loveman is reminding me that if we have commercial music on, then the advertising music goes to the musician, to the artist. I haven't, but I think it clicks in after a few seconds,
It's like
which we
yeah, it's like
Oh, yeah,
I thought
so-
it was 17 seconds, but that seems too long.
yeah. Oh man, I loved Boomtown Rats, Daniel Yount. Oh my goodness. That was one of my favorites. Loved Boomtown Rats.
Oh yeah, I see another one. I looked up Fishbone when they were around, and that was also the
Fishbone.
80s.
Loved Fishbone.
It's one of those bands I also don't think I've heard.
They have
Wouldn't
a
know.
Barry sax in their band. They're like a
That's why. Never mind.
no, they're not
I
jazz.
get it.
They're not. They're like rock
No.
and rolly.
You
but
put
they have
you put a saxophone, an accordion, bagpipes into your.
You're talking about Tom Waits again? How do we get back on him?
Except for Tom
My-
Waits. Tom Waits can get away with murder during a
It
song.
was so the
Actually, it's one of my
80s
favorite songs, but
was the 80s. The 80s was still Corey Haim and Corey Feldman and Lost Boys, and the soundtrack for Lost Boys was like that had the saxophone song.
Huh.
Blair, you have to listen to the Lost Boys, the saxophone
Alright.
song that was on
Actually,
that soundtrack.
this is a blind
because-
spot for me. I don't think I've ever seen this movie.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Okay, homework. You need to see this movie. This is required viewing
Corys,
material.
I'm trying to think, and now that you're saying this, I'm trying to think of what the earliest soundtrack
87.
to a movie that I remember and going like, oh, that's a great song outside of the movie. I think it was Young Guns.
Young Guns.
And I
yeah,
think is it Bon Jovi?
I think so. Yeah, because wasn't
I'm a
John-
cowboy.
wasn't he in that?
I'm
John Bon
still
Jovi?
a horse. No, he was not in the movie.
Wasn't?
No, but he was in the video. I mean, because they had the
88.
MTV music video show was on the TV, and he's all over the video, and then they show
Man.
clips from the movie.
Young
I don't
Guns.
think
That
he's in
was
the movie.
that was all the dudes.
That was all the Rat Pack of the day or whatever they would be called.
Those were
Young
the
Guns.
dudes. I
I'm
gotta
not
watch
familiar
that
with that one
movie.
either.
You have to watch that movie too.
Actually, it's actually pretty interesting because they actually did a pretty good job of telling the story of Billy the Kid.
Yeah.
They
It was
didn't
a
just
good
create
movie.
Oh, it's
a
in the
non-historical
modern
version.
era. Is that
No,
it's a Western.
cowboy. It's a Western.
It's a Western.
Okay.
But it
and-
was like all the hot young 80s actors was
Lou
the
Diamond
thing.
Phillips
That's funny.
was
Yeah.
in that movie, and then one of the Sheen kids, or one of those guys.
Or both of them, who knows?
Okay,
Actually, both of them. Emilio Estevez and Charlie Sheen. There you go.
there we go.
They were both in there.
I don't remember Charlie Sheen in that though.
Charlie,
So-
But I don't remember the
they're
movie that well.
all
I just
in
remember the
it. Lou
soundtrack.
Diamond Phillips.
And I remember the soundtrack, and I remember the shot of them all doing all the walk together, where they're all like the characters, and they're all looking off in the
John
different
Bon
distances they
Jovi.
go. That's I remember that part.
And I just checked, and you're right. It was John Bon Jovi, Blaze of Glory.
John Bon Gobi.
John Bon Gobi.
Yeah, it's not who I thought made that.
And
Well, it's that thing
this
too.
is
Like,
my fish costume for next year.
what was it? 12 Years a Slave. That movie. That movie, 12 Years a Slave. Didn't see the movie, missed the movie, but I heard Steve McQueen directed it, and I'm like, I didn't even know he was still alive, and let alone made that movie. Like, it seemed so disparate that Steve McQueen, the old action hero, car driving, muscle car, made that movie, and it turns out, no, it's just a British director named Steve McQueen. It's completely different. I was like, okay.
Yeah,
But
I was
this
gonna
is one
say,
of
I'm
those
pretty sure he's
things-
dead.
Yeah, no, but this is one of those things that got solved immediately with a smart device, which if not for the smart device, I'd have just gone the whole rest of my life thinking the old muscle car action hero from the 60s, 70s, whatever, went on to direct 12 Years a Slave. I just would have assumed that's because that's the name that they said was the director, and that's the only other connotation I had. So yeah, sometimes it's nice to have the thing. Like, that's really interesting. I had no idea. Oh, that's why. I see. Okay, it's a different human being with the same name. It's actually not as uncommon a name as you might think.
Yep.
Yeah.
What was the song?
Oh, Blade Runner is a fantastic movie. That is a really fantastic movie. Talk about the David
Love
Bowie.
Blade Runner.
Talk about the
So
David
good.
Bowie ability to do anything. That man threw himself into. Wow. Yeah.
One of my favorite movies, Labyrinth.
Yeah.
David
that's a good one,
Bowie.
too.
Mhm.
I like the. What was it? Was the one where is it just called the Man That Fell to Earth? He's like, it's kind of a convoluted.
Yeah.
like,
The
back
man that
when-
fell to earth. Hmm.
back when
Yep.
the writer, the director, and everybody involved in making a movie just might have been experimenting a lot. It's a movie that is about, I guess, an alien who comes down and just collects a bunch of wealth, and I think he's trying to get home again because he's got this family that you see these little clips of, and they're like living in this little pod.
Thomas
but something's wrong
Jerome
with the family.
Newton, played by David Bowie, is an alien who has come to Earth in search of water to save his home planet. Aided by lawyer Oliver Farnsworth, played by Buck Henry, Thomas uses his knowledge of advanced technology to create profitable inventions.
Yeah.
While developing a method to transport water, Thomas meets Mary Lou, Candy Clark, a quiet hotel clerk, and begins to fall in love with her. Just as he is ready to leave Earth,
Hotel clerk. I thought she was a waitress, but okay.
Thomas is intercepted by the U.S. government, and his entire plan is threatened.
Yeah, and I don't remember how exactly it ends because I think it just sort of ends slightly psychedelically. Like they're just like, okay, well, we spent 5 months making a movie. Let's put an ending on it and be done. It's sort of how I remember.
Listen,
No spoilers.
I feel like for a long time, movies weren't that worried about the ending.
no.
It was more just like an expression or an exploration. They were like, I think that's enough.
Yeah, so it is very
all at
interesting you
the
point that
end.
out because there was like all movies sort of followed pretty basic formulas for a long time, and then for a while they just completely stopped, And then they started right back up again to the point now where it's all now the same movie.
So I'm confused.
All the same movie.
Stephen Rain just said there's a Blade Runner 3 that's coming out.
Yeah, I've heard that that's
Is it
being worked on. I've heard that rumor.
so? Is it
Is
based
it the
off
Goss
of
again?
what?
Well, because one was a they had the movie and then they redid the movie, basically.
No, they didn't. It was a very like the reboot of the Star Wars is it was like a treatment of a very similar plot. Yes, that is true.
Yeah.
But it was
It was a new movie. Okay.
it was a new it was in the future, right? So like
So okay, so was the second movie? So the first one was based off the book "Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep" by Philip K. Dick. But then I'm seeing that there are more Blade Runner books. There's like a whole series written by somebody named K.W. Jeter, which makes me very concerned about the direction of a series. I mean, unless it's a series of books and they're good. I had no idea.
Oh, Shoemaker's bringing up David Lynch. Yeah, David Lynch was masterful.
Love David Lynch.
Masterful. And I need to re-see Lost Highway. All I can remember from Lost Highway is the like extremely long intro where you just see the highway at night and it's like you're a car going down the center with the lines coming down the middle. Because I remember driving through a desert once like that, very much like that. So when I saw that, it was like made such a big impression on me. It was like, I know exactly what this feels like. But I don't remember the movie at all. I just remember the sort of intro footage. I should go see that movie again.
Dude, okay, so I searched Blade Runner 3. So it was leaked in January of this year that Blade Runner 3 is in development. That would be weird because the first movie didn't do well in theaters. It became kind of a cult thing later.
Cult classic, yeah.
And the second one didn't do very well in theaters either. So that's interesting. But I just think it's funny that like I Googled like Blade Runner 3 or whatever. And then in the suggested questions in Google,
it's being adapted for TV.
Is Deckard a replicant or not? Is the dog in Blade Runner 2049 real? How old is Harrison Ford?
So you said something very interesting.
Yeah.
I thought there.
Yeah.
You said it didn't do very well in theaters.
Yeah.
When did it come out?
Good question.
Are you saying Blade Runner came out before theaters?
No, the not the first one. Not the first one. Not the first one.
Yeah, 82 it came out. Oh, but you want to know when 2049 came out. Okay.
Yeah.
What was that?
Like
2017. Yeah, I was going to say 2017 or 18.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, you can't blame the pandemic if that's what you
Well, no, okay.
No.
So what I'm thinking of, and I was thinking about how things stream now. This is a new thing. I don't know if you caught this.
It was pre-streaming.
Yeah.
But it was okay.
I remember because Brian bought the DVD. So
because I did not see that in the theater. I saw that streaming. That's why
I have to tell you, I liked the movie overall, but it was too dang long. It was so long. So I just watched Avengers Endgame again recently, right? And that movie's 3 hours and 15 minutes. And for me personally, it goes by really fast, right? So like, it's just, but Blade Runner 2049 was like an interesting movie. I enjoyed it, but it's 2 hours and 43 minutes long. And it felt like it was 4 hours long. It felt so long. Like the pacing kind of matched the first movie, which is very slow and deliberate, right? It takes its time. But the original movie wasn't 2 hours and 45 minutes long. So I feel like it was a weird mismatch where it was very slow and deliberate, but it was also almost 3 hours long. And by the end, I was like, are we done?
Yeah. That's funny.
Brian loved it.
That's good.
I liked it. I didn't regret my time in the theater. I will probably watch it again, but I wasn't itching to buy the DVD. That was definitely his thing.
I just watched the Benicio del Toro old remake of what's it? It's on Netflix right now. I wonder if you can get it in Denmark, Justin. You'd probably really like it because it's like old, kind of like it's got like a noir detective kind of feel, or a
I've seen
noir
it.
thriller.
I've seen it. He's sent out to keep these people in this house while they go in.
No.
It's the catalytic converter story. Is
What?
that the one?
No.
Oh,
No.
okay. Then I don't know what this one is.
No. No, not Benicio. What's the guy's name?
Is it Benicio del Toro's name is Benicio del Toro? Now, see, this isn't again another example of the
I'm so bad at
conversation
remembering things.
and a week later, after asking everybody you know, who's that actor
Yeah.
who's not Benicio del Toro, you would finally come to the answer. Just probably
Find it.
remember it yourself and then get back to us next week. That's how
I
before.
know. I'll get back to you next week. I'll tell you next week what I
There's
was
a
thinking of. Somebody
Very
else
good
is gonna.
Benicio del Toro movie
Nope,
that's out there
someone
right
else.
now
12
on the-
Monkeys is good.
one of the streaming available things. Yeah, 12 Monkeys is a good movie.
Why is that
That
not
is a good
showing up? Oh well, I'll figure it out later.
Mhm.
But it's one that I thought that I thought that you would like, especially. I
Mhm.
ended up thinking that it was kind of slow, but it was there was a lot of tension.
Just the pace that Justin could handle.
Guillermo
watching
del
movies.
Toro, yes,
Guillermo.
The
Eric
wrong Del
Knapp.
Toro.
yes.
Are they
He's the
related?
director.
Yeah, Guillermo del Toro movies on. I swear it's on Netflix. Maybe it's not on Netflix.
Don't know.
What's it called, Eric? You're keeping me in the dark here
And
because
it's noir.
here it is, Nightmare Alley.
Oh,
Yes.
I heard about that.
I haven't seen it. No, I'll go check
I
it
think you, Justin, I think you'll enjoy it a lot. It's very, very noir, very good acting.
out. I like the noir. Ooh.
But
What are you doing? What are you?
yeah, it sets everything up.
Oh.
Everything is very carefully set up, and you try and
I like that.
figure out what's
Best
going
screenplay adapted from a book is the LA Confidential. That's one of my favorite movies to watch. I read the book after, and the book is different and goes into much more detail and kind of changes the characters around when you get to the screenplay. But the screenplay, if you watch that movie thinking about the writing that goes into it, there's not a wasted shot, phrase, scene. Like they packed that movie full of bare essentials of what is like a 400-page book and knocked it down into a movie. It is artful. I think it's
Yes.
one of the best.
Nowadays, they'd make it 3 movies.
Yeah, no, they would. They would. And actually, I wouldn't have minded that because
Like,
the book
okay.
is intensely better. But it gets it all across in the movie.
Now I want to watch movies.
Yeah.
Can we just have like I love hanging out and watching movies. That's one of my favorite things to do.
I like a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
We could live
Good-
tweet a movie.
Good
Live
movie
tweet along.
marathon. Mm-hmm. I still have to finish Don't Look Up.
Oh yeah.
I got
You
an
never
hour.
finished. Oh,
I got an
you know
hour
what?
into it and I couldn't get any further.
Man,
and I
you
just
know what?
have
Killed
yet
the
to sit
tension.
down and
It's
finish
over.
it.
Yeah, you just stop. Yes.
I think you
can't
got to
do
keep the
that.
tension going, or it's just not going to be. It's going to be like, eh.
I don't know. I was just angry at everybody and I
Yeah.
couldn't. I was like, I gotta go.
Yeah.
You know what I
I got up
appreciated?
and walked around a couple times while I was watching it. I was like, I can't. Oh.
You know what I
I will
appreciate?
say
You know
that
what?
also it also happened when I was watching Nightmare Alley. I was like, I walked around until I was behind the couch and I crouched down and I was like
Oh, I've done that.
looking, watching the movie, holding on to the couch pillows from behind the couch.
Oh God.
It was like, I can't. It was a lot of tension. A lot of tension, I tell you. I'm glad that we have streaming at home because that does not go over well in theaters.
No.
One thing I got to say about that movie, though, I feel like that was as much as that's like my favorite movie of the year.
Good night, Mike.
I had this really strange impression, and I don't know that anybody would back me up on it, that DiCaprio was as good as an actor as he is. I felt like he was doing an impression of one of the kids from the Big Bang Show.
Yeah.
He was like that main character. I'm like, there were some scenes I was just like, he's like impersonating the character, not the actor, but the character that the other actor did for that whole series. He's pretending to be that guy. He's in some of the scenes, he even looks like him, to the point where I was just, it's a little weird. It's a little strange. Like even mannerisms, speech patterns, some of it was just a little odd. I will turn off on a movie as soon as I realize I'm in a car chase scene. I'm like, forget it.
Oh, I love car chase scenes.
I'm out.
I mean,
I'm out. Don't give me.
I
the car
understand.
chase.
Like,
if I've seen enough of them.
But I recommend that if you are in a car chase, you don't necessarily just get out, because that could lead to you hitting the pavement too hard.
In some of the movies now, it's all car chasing. They just said, "Hey, let's get rid of all the plot and the storyline, the character development, all that, and let's just have a bunch
Are
of
you
cars."
talking about Fast and Furious 27?
Yeah.
So
Fast 9. When you're here, your family, Olive Garden.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. Stop.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. There's so much fun creativity out there. I love stories.
I think somebody mentioned Hitchcock. I think it would be pretty funny to do like a live tweet of the birds with you.
Oh my goodness. That'd be funny. It would be funny.
I'm a huge Hitchcock fan. I've watched everything. I've watched the TV series multiple times through. Like the whole series. Yes, the TV series. You want to get Hitchcock, you get a little bit of that Hitchcock magic in every single one of those episodes. That was a television show that he did for I don't know how many seasons.
Was it like the Twilight Zone and then it was like independent episodes, or was it
Yes, they were all independent episodes. Okay. It was not and he would come out, he emceed it, and he'd do something kind of funny.
I remember that.
In between. Yes, and then there'd be commercials, and he'd come back from the commercial, and he'd have some more shtick, and then they'd go back to the show.
Can you imagine you're such an epic director that you have your own theme song as a director?
Yeah.
That's bonkers.
That is. Well, I could say there's a lot that have that. I would say that you could play the theme music from Curb, and Larry David's gonna walk out on the stage. Like you just know it.
Yeah, but he also stars in it.
Yeah,
and writes.
So did Hitchcock.
So like he's Hitchcock never starred in his movies.
He was in all of his movies.
His TV show.
Yeah, he had he always had cameos. Like he would walk on screen. He didn't star in his movies. He wasn't the face of his movies. So like
That's true.
So it's more like I don't know. I just feel like you have it's a very unusual relationship for a writer director to have a theme song.
Yeah.
When the movies aren't connected in any way, they're completely standalone. It's just very unusual.
But I think that was from what you're thinking of came from the TV show, though. I think that's what that's from.
Is it?
Yeah, you're thinking about the intro to the TV show, and then he'd have it had this sort of almost
the silhouette. No, that was in his movies too. The silhouette was the title. It was after the title card. It was like, you know how it would say like New Line Cinema now or whatever. So it was one of the cards before the movie.
Is it?
Or at the end. But
That's
yes,
the-
it was
That
definitely
was
there.
in the TV show.
Yeah, it was
Anyway.
definitely. It's like if you watch the birds, the silhouette thing is a thing. I'm pretty sure.
Okay. I might have been out of
I don't
it.
know. Maybe someone in the chat room can fact check me on that.
Yeah, I think he's quite possibly the greatest director, writer for tension. His ability to understand how to create tension in the audience. There we go. Yeah, that's the TV show. Maybe Blair's never seen the movies and has only
No,
seen the TV
I've
show and
seen
thought they
I've
were movies.
seen quite a few.
And the other thing I love about his movies, tight 25 minutes long.
Hmm.
That's
No.
the other thing I love about his movies.
No,
It's
no,
short,
no,
nice
no,
short
no.
movies.
No. You know who else is good at building tension? Kubrick. Very good. His movies make me anxious.
But then there's also there's different kinds of tension that you build in a movie. There's the tension that where you the audience know what's coming, but none of the actors know. And then there's the other kind of tension where the actors kind of have an idea of what's happening, and then you as the audience are waiting to find out what it is.
Mm-hmm.
You're like trying to catch up to them, or you get
And then
ahead
there's
of
the
them,
kind
and
of
then they
tension
gotta
where
catch
all
up
the
to you,
birds
and-
on the planet have gone insane.
It's a very specific.
And also you're obsessed with Bodega Bay.
It's nice in Bodega Bay.
It is.
Yeah, I like the Bodega Bay.
Bodega Bay is wonderful.
Yeah.
One movie I like in recent years I enjoyed that had like the fun kind of the actors know what happened, or some of the actors know what happened, but not all of them do. Knives Out.
Love Knives Out.
So good. Just so well done.
I did the thing in the height of the pandemic when you could rent an entire movie theater for your own party or whatever.
Nice.
This was after vaccines, but still things were pretty tight. And we had all of our parents, both sets of parents for, I think it was for Mother's Day. We all watched Knives Out, the 6 of us in an empty movie theater. It was very fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was great. But yeah, that's great. There's a new Knives Out coming out. There's a second one.
I've heard that. It'll
Yeah.
never be as good.
No, never. Because now it's gonna follow the formula in some way, right?
Yeah. It won't be as surprising.
Great.
Or I'll just wait until everybody tells me it was better than the first, and then I'll see it. I don't know.
No, just go in with low expectations. Low. Then if it's good, then you're like,
but hang on. It's sort of like how all the whatever Oceans 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever movies, that's a heist movie, right?
Mhm.
Right. They were all
They're
fun.
all of them are good. And
Yeah.
all can stand on because it's okay, we're gonna do a heist movie. All right, there we go. Let's do a heist movie. You're doing a whodunit. There's a room full of people and a detective. That's not a new idea.
No, certainly
And
not.
there's a million ways to perform it right. And if you have good writers, you should be able to come up with another whodunit that's just fine. Like it's not like what's her name? Agatha Christie was like, I wrote one murder mystery, and now the genre is over.
Never
No,
do it.
that's not
Well,
how
it's
it
like, so there's that Poirot movie coming out, and I think it's already gotten some early reviews, and they've been pretty bad.
Well, I mean, you can do them wrong, sure. But
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's whatever. Anyway.
if it's a Poirot movie and it doesn't have that original actor guy who was doing the Poirot movies, I don't know. It'd be pretty hard. Unless,
It's Kenneth Branagh.
Branagh?
Kenneth Branagh.
Branagh?
Branagh.
that?
AKA Gilderoy Lockhart.
Death on the Nile? Is
Yeah.
that the one that's
Yeah.
that's coming out?
Yeah. It has Gal Gadot in it and a bunch of people.
what's the worst movie you think you've seen recently?
Oh.
Oh, I
Worst.
saw Red
Red Notice? Yeah, I was gonna say Red Notice.
I haven't seen that.
It was very
Oh, is
bad.
it
That
that bad?
yeah,
It's so bad.
it's really not good.
Ooh. It's for the first 20 minutes I was like, this they might be able to turn this and then it was just kind of like, oh no.
It was all about, I think, the Ryan Reynolds kind of improv joking, kind of his jokiness, but yeah.
He makes an excellent Deadpool. I just wish he would be something else besides Deadpool in other movies.
Yeah. He has been, and I'm wondering why he's so stuck on this one particular character now, because he's done
Yeah.
some really interesting, like, different work.
Mhm.
But
He found one he liked and now he's just that character
Yes.
always.
yeah,
Because he's
Well.
that character in real life. Like if you see his social
Easy.
media where he
I get to be
interacts
funny.
with Hugh
All right.
Jackman and stuff, it's the same character. Anyway.
Wait.
I
Chippendale Rescue Rangers?
Oh, I saw the
No.
ad for that. Oh
no,
my
Stephen
God.
Rain. No. No.
It was so odd. I think it's for adults.
What?
The new Chippendale movie. I really think it is. Like I think it's going to be kid friendly, but I think it is for the parents.
Uh-oh.
Because
Okay.
because I saw it really feels like it's for the people who watched Rescue Rangers when they were a kid. That's what it's for. It's not for today's children.
It will be. They've done that a lot, like with Scooby-Doo and other things. They've
Mhm.
made the movies for the kids, but it's not for the kids really. It's for
Mhm.
the
Yeah,
adults.
that's
Yeah.
I do that a little too often.
I'm unsure about it, but I'll see it. I
You
will
will?
see it.
Oh.
I was hoping it was going to be an actual reboot of Rescue Rangers because they rebooted DuckTales and it's excellent. It's so good, but they canceled it. And I'm so sad about it. David Tennant is Scrooge McDuck in it. And,
Oh, wow.
Danny Pudi and Bobby Moynihan and Ben Schwartz are Huey, Dewey, and Louie. It's and then what's her name? Kate McCucci is
Who?
Webby. So are you familiar with Garfunkel and Oates?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
But so anyway, so
Got
it's a really good cast. They're so good, but they canceled the show, and I'm so mad at Disney for canceling it. And then they're like, "Oh, we're redoing Rescue Rangers." I was like, "Okay, it sounds decent." It's gonna be John Mulaney and Andy Samberg. I'm like, "Okay, all right, sure."
Are they just now announcing stuff out of their first pitch meeting?
Pretty much, yeah.
What if we did this? All right, announce it. Okay. Oh, should we get this? See if anybody's interested.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. We should do that later. We'll just keep making.
Yeah, and so I thought it was just going to be a reboot like that, and I got all excited, and then it's this weird movie. I don't know.
My least favorite movie that I saw recently was The Tomorrow War. It was.
Oh,
Chris
you're
Pratt
right. That was so bad. Oh my God,
produced
you're
and
right. That was
acted
worse
in and
than
everything.
Red Notice.
And it was just so convoluted and just bad.
There were so many plot holes. I could not get over it.
No, it was the whole thing.
I didn't understand.
The problem was I understood that they were just like, oh, okay, and here's a problem. Let's just ignore it. Okay. And then, oh, well, isn't this too much of a coincidence? Yeah, let's just ignore it. And, oh, so how do we end this? Just ignore it. Okay.
So what drove me nuts was they pulled the main character out of the past into the future to study the aliens. And then they sent him back in time with the cure. And then they were like, oh, snap. We need to use it right now. And it's like, no, but okay. So first of all, you could have 28 years to do the science. You don't have to send him to the future to send samples back and spend 28 years doing
what
the
movie is
science.
this?
The Tomorrow
War.
War.
I don't know if you saw.
Oh, yeah.
It makes
Yeah.
no sense.
But okay, so
it's like they remember how time works sometimes, but they forget that it goes the slow way.
Marty
Yeah.
McFly comes back in the DeLorean instead of like 3 days earlier to warn Doc. He comes back 10 minutes and only has time to hand him a note. Doc, all out. You know, it's just my problem with that movie too is they tried to hit all of the scenarios that you would see in a good movie and said, hey, let's do a father-daughter relationship. Check. Let's do a father-son relationship. Check. Let's do a husband and wife issues. Check. Let's lose the mother. Check. Okay. So stop. And then because then you ended up with going to the future, running into the daughter, and then needing the father to go to the place, and the father and son are fighting. It's just, no, stop it. You could have made the movie without trying to include those things, checking boxes, and the movie would have been better. And yes, all of the plot holes. Yes, why did you, and like, why are we taking, what's the point of taking these people to the future? Don't we have them now? Can we go back in time? Can we just,
You have now convinced Gord to watch the Tomorrow War.
It's so worth it. It's so worth it. Just to take notes of what not to do.
Get a nice beverage, get a nice something to eat. I don't know. Just reward yourself in some way. This is how I get through bad films, is I find a way to call out the things that are bad about them in some way.
Yeah.
Create a drinking game, watch it with somebody where you can pause and be like, okay, what the hell just happened?
And the reason that one is I would put, because I think I definitely have seen completely worse things. The thing is though, that usually a badly written movie, is a badly produced movie. It's a badly shot movie. It's a really badly edited movie. It's a bad everything. And you can tell pretty quick, oh, this is a bad movie. The problem with Tomorrow Wars is it looks like a good movie. It has animation that's phenomenal. Good movie animation. It has all of the things a real good movie could have, but then all of the things that engage you with that are awful. And that's what pisses me off. You just make a bad movie, you could tell, oh, okay, I'm going to watch a bad movie. I can tell because they edited this one scene with 40 edits because they never got the shot right. Oh.
Stephen Rain is saying
go
that
ahead.
we need a TWIS movie. 3 rambunctious podcasters must save Earth from evil in space. And I think that is the plot of Moonfall, actually.
Oh, interesting.
Oh yeah,
except it's one rambunctious podcaster played by Jack Black. So.
And Gord, we got somebody beat us to the punch. We had the idea on show live of a space program capturing an asteroid and wanting to bring it to Earth, and then have people either paying to have it land there or paying not to have it land near them. And it's a little bit of a don't look up now. It's going to look like we're biting.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Yeah. So Gord says don't pay attention to
time travel
mechanics. But the problem is that when they set very specific mechanics, which is you can go 28 years in the future, you'll be there for a week, and then you're coming right back here, and you can bring things with you. Just based on that alone, it's just very funny to me that they were like, we're going to send you to the future for 7 days. And in those 7 days, you have to do the science and figure out the thing. Instead of remembering that you could
bring it back.
It's been 28 years
getting ready for what's
getting ready for the science.
Yeah.
Also, when you open the Pandora's box of time traveling and start future time traveling like this, and actually this is the premise. This is entirely the premise of my Jack feedback story. Was he creates an army of him, right? He goes back in time a day, and just collects himself. And it's like, get on the ship. And then he goes back a day. Get on the ship. Why am I going back a whole day? I'll go back an hour. Get that guy. Put him on the ship. And he creates this whole army of him to go and fight in this, because this planet's getting attacked and they don't have a military because they're all academic. So he creates one of himself by going back increments of time and kidnapping himself and recruiting himself to go join this thing. They could have done that in that movie too, which is instead of take those. Okay, so you took everybody Tuesday and you sent them into the future. hey, why don't you jump back
To
a day
Monday.
when everyone was still here and send them
We'll send
too?
them on Monday.
And then
We'll send
you
them all
go
the
back
different
to
days.
Sunday and grab all those same people and send them to the future too. Or you could just keep doing it.
Justin, have you seen Bender's Big Score, the first Futurama movie?
Get rid of
Because
There's
that
also-
happens exactly in it with the Benders. He
Yeah,
goes
and
back
there-
in
is it-
time a bunch of times, and there's
There's a
bunch of them.
scene in
which is
Futurama
also
where
written
they're.
after mine, by the way.
I think it's in.
Just to be clear, it came way
There's a
after
scene
I
in
wrote mine.
Futurama where they're going through some kind of. Nope, no, it's not Futurama at all. It's the Minions movie. That's what it is. It's the Minions movie, and they're watching something, and it's like there's a scientist who's showing off all of his time travel stuff, and he's got all of his his people, himself that he's gone and collected, and they're all there working together, and they're like, isn't this amazing? And blah blah blah. And then one of them does something and kills himself, and then they go, oh no, that's the first one, and then they all died. They all disappear, and it's really funny. I thought it was well done.
Yeah, very good. It's
Yeah.
that first Futurama movie actually is some of the best treatment of time travel I've ever seen.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Because they talk about, like, there's a whole thing
Futurama.
about when there's time travel duplicates, there's a self-correcting paradox that kills one of them, basically. So you can't, and then they actually show how things that happened in the past that were part of a time travel story went into what happened in a way that made sense. So it was like, the Mobius strip existed and all this kind of stuff. So they did a really good job, in my opinion, of that. I think also, speaking of Endgame, since I brought that up before, they do a pretty good job of explaining time travel in that one as well. There's still some problems with it, but since they talk about timelines, it kind of fixes it. So the past is the past, the future is the future. When you go back in time, that's part of your future. And if you change anything, then that creates a new timeline. It's like you're off the track, right?
Yep.
So it makes the most sense.
It's branching timelines,
Right.
branching realities. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the only way it makes sense.
Yeah.
But if you've seen Loki,
Mhm.
that you can see that like
I haven't
a
seen
bit
that.
more. They delve into that a bit more.
Yeah. I liked that a lot, actually.
I liked Loki a lot.
That was great. That was my favorite of the Marvel shows, I think.
I got halfway through Hawkeye. I haven't finished Hawkeye yet.
It's okay. It's all right.
I like that. It's cute.
Yeah. It's the Winter Soldier, Falcon Winter Soldier one was fine, but it was a little more of a slog. It felt very normal. It
Yeah,
felt like
exactly.
very pedestrian. It was like, you gave me WandaVision and Loki, and now I have this.
Yeah. Agreed.
Just like a crime fighting duo.
A military crime fighting duo.
Yeah.
No less. Yeah.
With Kurt Russell's son in it. Looking like the old man from Up.
That's right.
No Sudden Move. That was the Benicio del Toro movie I saw recently. That was good. It's on one of the streaming things.
Okay, well, speaking of timelines.
Yes.
I have
Is
to go
it
to bed.
time? Have you hit the time?
Say goodnight, Blair.
Good night, Blair. Say good night, Justin.
Good night, Justin.
Oh, good morning, Justin.
Even though
I
it's
usually
daytime.
remember. It's late.
Yeah.
/ early.
Good night, Kiki.
Kiki.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another episode of TWIS. We have had so much fun. What fun! Music and movies and cultural conversations after the sciencing was done. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful night. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Stay curious. We'll see you again next week.